My roommate is pressuring me into a threesome, and I clearly don't want it. So my roommate and I have been living together for almost a year now. We're both the same age, 23, and have a lot of things in common. At one point we were very close, and people even said that we look alike. Since both of us were working at a furniture store, it was easier to live together and split the bills. A couple of months ago, everyone was notified on WhatsApp not to report to work until further notice. We later found out that our boss had a lot of issues going on, and the bank was auctioning some of her property, including the building where the furniture store was at. That's how we both lost our jobs without even being paid the previous month's salary. We never thought that it would take this long to get another job. We were both actively searching for jobs online and in person. I didn't know that she had started looking for alternative sources and was considering hookups. So she met this guy, who happened to be a client from our previous workplace, and knew the both of us. He has some kind of fetish, and was asking her if he could have our hair looking the same and put on the same outfit. In short, he wanted a threesome with us, looking like twins. He was willing to pay at least $300 for each of us, and my roommate tried to convince me into it. At first I thought, we do it once, and just pay some of our debt, which will buy us time to clear the rest, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I also don't know how to be intimate with people I have no emotional connection with, and now she went from asking me nicely to harassing me, saying she'd rather live alone and she'll get me kicked out. Yesterday, I found out she's been talking to the landlord behind my back. She's forgotten last month that I sold some of my stuff so I could buy food for the both of us. Normally, both of us would give $380 to budget for rent and other bills each month. Since last month, none of us had paid our share of the rent, and by the 10th, we would be owing the landlord for 2 months. The landlord knows that we both lost our jobs and has been very patient. I don't know what she said for him to threaten to put me out of the house if I don't pay my share on time. She has manipulated the landlord against me, and I feel betrayed by her. We are both in the same situation, and yet she's only trying to pressure me into agreeing to the threesome. I don't know how I'll get to pay my share, but I'm certain this is not what I want. I just don't understand how someone will come up with something like that and just manipulate me to follow through without even considering how I feel about it. What should I do? Should I just avoid her and forget about this, or after getting a job, just move out? I had already sold most of my stuff just to keep us going, and now when I'm at my lowest, she is turning against me. I have nothing against sex work, it's just something I can't get myself to do. I care about her as a sister, but I feel this time she really went out of line. In the comments, she isn't your friend, she isn't your sister, and as a would-be pimp, not me, your roommate, at $300 for sex, she's trying to severely underpay you for your body. Talk to the landlord, get a job, whatever can be found, find a new roommate to live with. Came here to say exactly this. I've dabbled in cam work. Maybe OP or their roomie would want to consider this. Don't do it if you don't like the idea, obviously. And I would charge $1,000 for a meetup, plus $300 an hour after that if someone seriously wanted to do something in person. The high cost for meetup would cover my travel expenses, because we would not meet in the town that I live in, and for taking my own life at risk. Then $300 an hour for fun times, whether that's having a meal, having sex, sleeping over, etc., and I wouldn't be paying for meals or any outings that we did. Talk to your landlord and move out. Reach out to reliable friends or family. Don't do what you don't want to do, just walk away now. Absolutely tell the landlord. If they knowingly do nothing and allow sex trafficking or prostitution on their property, they'll open themselves to a host of legal liability, in the US at least. The landlord may well be a client of the roomie. Maybe the best not to mention anything about trafficking, etc., except to report to law enforcement if necessary. No need courting danger with someone who has keys to your home. Update. Hi guys. I posted how my roommate was pressuring me into a threesome. I read most of the comments, and I decided to tell the landlord how she was manipulating me and everything that was happening. He eventually believed me and confronted her. I know this is evil, but she turned on me first, and being open with the landlord, he agreed to give me more time. I also have a job interview coming up. If everything goes well, I might be having a job next week, and if not, I'll look for a shelter. There were people who genuinely were worried about me, so I had to let them know that I didn't go through with it, and I wasn't kicked out, at least for now. Aside from that, I also got messages from a lot of men. I know men are allowed in this sub, but I have to say that kind of post attracted some creeps, and I got a lot of chat requests asking weird stuff. One even asked to pay for videos. I declined, and he told me that I must have a potato body to not want to show myself even with my face hidden. Like I said, I have nothing against sex work. I just can't bring myself to do it. People messaging me how morals can't pay bills and I should just sell the pee. I don't know what to say because I don't want to be rude or offend anyone. Considering everything I have to say, as much as there are nice people in here, there are also bullies. And if you have nothing kind to say to someone, just ignore their post. Some of us have our own issues, and this is the only safe space that we could come to vent. In the comments, Tannig Rebel says, "Well done. If you want to, steady use of the report function." OP says, "I blocked most of them." Consider removing the part about which subreddit you've been using another account on. Some creeps might start digging into that subreddit and figure out which one is you. Y90210 says, "The reason why it sounds cheap is because the roommate is getting $3,000 and she's offering $300 to OP. That explains why she's so upset over her not taking the deal." That explains so much. Heiger Bohm Hudner says, "Sheesh. That part where OP mentioned how a lot of men reached out to her for some creepy shit is effing scary. I'm a dude and wouldn't even think about that. Really makes me wonder what the hell goes on in these guys' heads." Well, she's desperate enough to briefly consider doing actual physical sex work, so maybe I can coax, bully, and manipulate her into doing something slightly tamer, like videos. That's the mindset. It's disgusting. They just saw a vulnerable woman in a difficult situation and thought they could take advantage of that to get what they wanted. Am I the asshole for charging my friends rent, then keeping the money for myself? This will be my first year in college. When I got accepted, the first person I told was my uncle. We are very close because he took care of me when I was little because of my parents' crazy work schedules. Anyway, my grades were good enough to get me in, but not enough to get me any scholarships. That means I'll have to take out loans for my tuition and work for my expenses. When my uncle found out, he said that I should just concentrate on school instead of working, but my dad, his brother, said that money is tight right now, so my parents can't help me out as much as they want to. My uncle has investment properties all over the place, so he said that it's not a big deal for him to buy another one near my campus, which he did. Then he had contractors renovate the house, so everything in there is brand new. He even had them install a bay window in the master bedroom just for me, and I got to pick out everything else like the carpet and counters. He told me he wants me to concentrate on school and not work. Instead, I can be his landlady and rent out the other 3 bedrooms and keep that money to fund my expenses. I have a group of friends who are attending the same school, so I made a deal with them. Studio apartments are going between $900 to $1,500, not including utilities around the campus, with the expensive ones being closer. My uncle's house is 1 street over from the campus, so I can literally walk to class every day. I'm charging my friends $700 per room, or if they double up, $350 per person per month, and split utilities evenly. They all jumped at the offer, and no one asked any questions until recently when one of them asked me how much the overall rent was. I was honest and told them about my uncle and our deal. That blew up in my face because now every one of my friends are calling me greedy for charging them rent and then pocketing the money. We're all in a huge fight, and they all want to either pay nothing or throw a couple hundred in for utilities. I cried to my uncle, but he said now that I'm an adult, I need to make my own adult decision. He'll stand by my decision. I don't want to lose my friends, but I don't want to disappoint my family with bad grades either. I thought I was being fair with rent, but literally all of my friends are calling me a greedy asshole. In the comments, Dittohead Forever says, "You're not the asshole. They're getting a great deal, but instead of focusing on that, they are seething with envy. Your uncle didn't buy and renovate that home so that your jealous friends could have a free place to live. He invested in that home so that you could have a place to stay and an income while you're in school. Don't back down, OP. Your friends are not entitled to a free roof over their heads just because you have one. OP's friends are entitled AF. They're getting a great deal, one they cannot get anywhere else, but they want more. The idea that just because you own something free and clear, you can't charge rent? That's a lunatic notion. The use of real estate has a value separate and apart from how that real estate is financed. There's a lesson here for OP in the problems of mixing business with personal relationships. Being the landlord for your friends and family can be tricky, not always, but it's also not rare. It's not the best practice. I have honestly noticed this type of attitude towards renting with most of the younger generation. Not to sound like a crotchety old lady or anything, but rent covers a safe space to yourself and privacy, climate-controlled place to store your stuff, wear and tear on the home and facilities you use, and renters' rights once a lease is signed, etc. I have no idea why so many people think they're entitled to a free living space if they're renting from a friend and family. I rented a room from my bestie that owned a house back in the day. I felt good knowing that my rent was going towards my good friend and his mortgage instead of some unknown entity that owned a big block of apartments. Opie is very lucky not to have a mortgage, but that doesn't mean that she has to subsidize other people's lives. Similar happened with someone that I know. The issue is they saw you as an equal, and now they see you as someone in a position of power with them. They are now lower than you, and that's going to breed a whole lot of resentment. What you can do is tell them, look, my uncle wanted to rent these rooms out at 1.4k each. I convinced him to do me a favor and let me rent the room to my friends. Convince them they are getting a huge deal. It gives you a shot at salvaging this. You're insane. Just replace them and charge the same rent for other people. Yes, I agree. Opie needs to tell them that is what will happen and also tell their folks that. I bet you Opie's friends, at least some of them, are getting supplementation from their folks, and I bet the parents would be upset if they ruined an incredible deal with their own greed. Yeah, honestly, I very much agree with these comments here. I do think that these friends are spinning the situation way out of control and are going to screw themselves out of a great deal with their own immaturity, their inability to see the forest through the trees. Even though, yes, OP is in a much better position than them, it is unfair, but unfortunately life is unfair in many instances. If you can't get over your own envy and greed in this situation, even though I don't think they should do, I think they have a right to be upset because situations like this happen all the time. I do think that these friends are shooting themselves in the feet by demanding to live for free here. I respect OP for being open and honest with them because, hey, I can be honest with my friends and expect them to understand where I'm coming from, but apparently not. And I do question whether these are actual friends of yours, OP, or if these are just, I don't know, not really friends? Questionable. Update. Thank you for reading my post and giving me advice. I went to my uncle, this time without crying, and told him some of the advice given on here and asked him for his advice. This time he didn't tell me to make my own adult decisions and told me he was waiting for this conversation. This is what we agreed to do. I texted all of my friends, former, and told them because of the arguments and hurt feelings, we can no longer live together. My uncle offered to work out a lease for me in the beginning, but I refused because these were my friends. Because no one signed a lease, we didn't have to break any. I was worried about them suing, but my uncle said that the law in our state requires anything to do with real estate to be in writing. Unlike other situations, real estate deals cannot be oral, so I'm good. This time I took him up on the offer of creating a lease for me to have new tenants sign. We spent the morning researching rent prices and making ads. My friends and I made the agreement at the beginning of summer. Now that there's only a couple of weeks left until school starts, we found almost nothing within 3 miles of campus. There were some options further out, but nothing was cheaper than $1,200 for a shared room, and that was in an old house with window AC units and 5 miles from campus. When the house was being renovated, my uncle had central air and heating installed. We came to a rent price of $1,300 and placed ads in several places, including Facebook. Within an hour, I got a dozen messages. It's 4 p.m. now, and I literally have over 100 messages. Many of them don't even need to see the house in person. Based off of the pictures and location, they want to submit their application today. Some even offered to send me the deposit, and one person said their dad will pay me the full semester amount today. My uncle gave me some advice that was exactly what you guys said. Never mix money with friends, or I might lose both, and never tell anybody my business. He told me not to lie, just keep quiet. Thanks again, and have a great weekend, you wonderful people. Our next post is by user myissues123, titled, "To my husband's female colleague. I do not know your Reddit name, but you finally gave me a reason to use this throwaway. I know you looked through this sub after you got advice here telling you to come clean to me about your affair with my husband. I personally couldn't find a thread that fit the description, but could be the wrong sub or you deleted it. So if you read this and it sounds familiar, then yes, it's about you. I have no plans of speaking to you in the future, but I want to make a few things clear. Yes, I do remember when we first met at the Christmas party and you kept trying to get my husband alone to talk. You pouted so much when he refused, I thought that you would quack. Do you remember how all of his colleagues were friendly with me? I remember when you approached my husband and I walking home from my birthday party. I'm pretty sure this was a coincidence, but seeing my husband practically jump away from you trying to hug him was the highlight of my night. I know my husband is sexy. Of course I know. I married him and had kids with him. But I bet you didn't know because you've only been at the company for a few months that your co-workers used to be my workers. I know all about you trying to get him alone after meetings, not only straight from my husband because you make him feel uncomfortable, but also from them. Did you think he wouldn't talk to me after you accidentally sent him 2 provocative photos on 2 separate occasions? Did you think that you could really get him? Did you look at his Instagram and think, wow, I want that life, I just need to lie to his wife and it's all mine? Do you think knocking on my door when I'm hosting a dinner party to hand me printouts of your conversations with him that I would go off the deep end and divorce him? I'm pretty sure HR have spoken to you already about your inappropriate behavior and misuse of his personnel file. I'm sure you're shocked. Maybe you didn't think my husband would report it. I don't know what repercussions you'll get, and I don't care. If you come near me, my husband, our kids, or our nice home again, police will be called. A word of advice if you're going to fabricate messages, you might want to get rid of the wrong number or at least replace it with a name. In the comments, CuteBoy84 says, "I hope this isn't in Austin, Texas, because it sounds like a woman that I had to deal with. I had to stand up and open my office when she wanted to talk to me in my office. She stalked me as much as she could on my Facebook through coworkers that had me added. It was quite annoying. I had refused to go out during the weekends because I lived in San Antonio, and it was even more annoying when she tried to invite me out during the work week with coworkers. When I completely said I'm not interested and I don't have time to extracurricular, she had a coworker that she was hooking up with also claim that I was sexually harassing her at work. It turned out HR saw all of the unsolicited texts and had her fired. I was told to avoid situations like that in the future." You can't defend against that, except by avoiding being alone with anyone. Talk about scary. Darkest of Flames says, "I had a coworker who did something similar about 20 years ago. She was obsessed with a married coworker who was nice and had trained her. His wife worked in the same place, but a different department. This woman would openly talk about wanting to screw him and not caring about his marriage. She stalked and harassed his wife and confronted her at a group event. She attacked his wife, who promptly kicked her ass and had her arrested. People are nuts. I desperately need to find this woman's post because I am so invested in the drama. I'm sorry that you and your family are going through this, OP, but it's like a car crash. I can't look away." OP responds, "It is absolutely fine. I would be the same in your shoes. I honestly don't know if it's revenge for him not having an affair with her or if she really believes it. Honestly, it could go either way. She could be mentally ill and genuinely believe this scenario she's created in her head, or she could just be taking revenge on your husband and your family because he refused an affair, like you said. Regardless, she sounds dangerous. Please stay safe." Update: she has been fired with immediate effect. I will update when we know our next steps. Thank you for the support so far. And now, on to the second update. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who supported my husband and I in my first post. This might go on for a little bit, so I'm sorry in advance. I probably won't be as articulate as I was in my first post. I never found her post, by the way. A few people implied that there was no smoke without fire. Usually I would agree, and have been on the other side making these comments myself on my actual account, but my husband is also on Reddit and saw the comments, and he wanted me to add some prior events. My husband is high up within the company marketing department that works closely with the event team in their field. When they work together on a project, big or small, they have to have meetings. The bigger the project, the more meetings needed. My husband works very closely with the colleagues that went on maternity leave. The woman was highly recommended by a senior employee in the events team, so after she had training on the systems and brought up to speed by her department head and my husband for a big project, he was friendly towards her. He remained professional at all times, and the meetings they had were also never alone. The project was a success, and then another big project landed in their laps. It was at this time the woman started acting strange just before the Christmas period, asking for clarification after meetings when the points had been discussed thoroughly. When my husband rebuffed this and directed her to her own manager, it escalated to offering to discuss work matters over coffee, lunch, and dinner countless times a week, telling him that he looked good that day. This was done using her work email. She met me at the Christmas party and sulked when she couldn't get him alone, and a few days later sent my husband the first picture via social media. He didn't actually see the first picture until after she apologized in person. He accepted her apology before checking his messages when he was back at home with me. She had put an "oops, sorry, wrong person" message straight after it, so when he clicked that message, the first picture was there, which she could have deleted before he actually saw the message. A week later, a similar thing happens with a second picture on a different social media platform. He saw who the message was from and asked me to open it. It was a little more provocative than before, but when she apologized, she asks him if he told me about the pictures, as she didn't want me to get the wrong idea, as they were both obviously a drunken mistake. She was not a friend on any of his social media, so I don't know how she thought that was an excuse. My birthday comes along, and when she went to hug my husband, he jumped away, as her actions were getting him worried. But after that, her actions calmed down a little bit. She sort of stopped asking him out to discuss work so much. But then last Monday happened. Update: she was fired for sexual harassment and gross misconduct, and this has led to someone else being suspended pending investigation. As my husband and I were both working from home due to the events that happened last week, I was unaware at the time of my post that she had been suspended pretty much straight after my husband reported this to HR on Wednesday. He handed over the text exchange, the messages on his social media with proof he never responded, and he printed out the work emails he had received also. The reason for the rapid response was due to the nature of the allegations, but I can confirm she was fired yesterday. I have not been told what she said, but she did not try to raise any allegation against my husband. In my comments, I explained a little about the HR department's system. The company uses an electronic personnel database which only HR employees can log into. No other employees should have access to this system, yet an employee in the IT department gave the woman unauthorized access to the HR system. A report was ran, and she had been in my husband's profile 34 times. I don't know what she actually did in there, but apparently there was so many amendments that they had to restore his file from a recent backup. So the IT employee has been suspended pending an investigation, but I don't know much else about that, as it's not my job to know. I'm only recounting what I've been told by my husband and former colleagues. The past 48 hours has been crazy. But I'm glad that this post reached other platforms, as a relative of hers found the post and reached out to us to apologize for the woman's actions. After a few messages were exchanged, we had a very long telephone conversation. I will not go into the specifics due to their privacy, however, I can say the following things with permission. The woman has been fixated on other men before, resulting in her having an order of protection against her and her needing treatment. The family believes this is due to a traumatic event that she only witnessed when she was a child. She is normally very stable when she has medication. The only problem with that is that when she is stable, she believes she is completely healthy and stops taking the medication, causing a relapse. The person that she had the text exchange with was her teenage niece, who was not aware of her aunt's condition. The niece was under the impression that it was a joke, then became scared when we called Wednesday morning, so she hung up. She reported this to her family, and they found out later that day that the woman had been suspended. The family found the post and my comment referencing the text exchange and got my husband's name from the woman after confirming the post was her. The woman is currently staying with other relatives about 4 hours away from where we are. We will be contacted if she goes missing from their care, especially while the medication is working its way back into her system. We will not be pressing charges at present, but we have logged this with the police, especially after talking about it with our friend, and her family are aware of this. Our security is being updated within the next 2 weeks. The school and daycare are also aware of the people who can and cannot drop off and pick up my kids with photos of them. They've also been provided a photo of her and to contact my husband and/or I if they see her near the school or attempt to pick the children up. Hopefully I won't need to provide further updates to this, and I'm going to have a bottle of wine, and hopefully my husband and I will have a very good night's sleep. Edit. The niece found the post and recognized some of the text exchange I referenced in my comments, possibly the part about kicking me out of my house with my kids, as that was the only part that I was not too vague about. But I don't actually know what else has gone on in their family behind the scenes, as I didn't speak to her directly. In the comments, moving forward, police are aware of the situation, but unless she goes missing from her family's care and shows up, then I'm okay with how things are. But if that doesn't happen, I definitely will call them again straight away. What did you mean by amendments? OP says, she had changed a lot of information on his file. I'm not allowed to know the exact extent, but she had access to everything HR would. They managed to confirm that she didn't access anyone else's file also, and the amendments were reverted back when the backup was restored. So a few mini updates since my update post. We're still in contact with her relative. She is doing better than she was, but the medication still needs to work its way into her system. It took a little while and her whole family to convince her why her actions were inappropriate and she needed to take her medication. The family is still worried that we will go the legal route, but we won't at this time. The niece has reached out to apologize for her part, but she is only young. The IT person has been let go. However, I do have a bit more information regarding that. She had asked for access to check her own file to check a reference. The IT person did it and forgot to take back the access. They had also given access to a few other employees. Access has now been revoked from everyone with unauthorized access. I don't know what the company will do with him yet, but I believe they are talking this out with their legal team. The senior employee that referred the woman in the first place has also reached out to apologize. They had no idea that there was even an issue until HR spoke to them. We will not be pressing charges against her or the company, as we wish just to move on from this as well as we can. We would have if my husband's professional reputation had been tarnished by this, or we seem to be in danger, but we're glad that nothing more has happened other than a few new grey hairs on the both of us. And now onto the final update, 6-month update. Hello everyone, it's been a while. I was hoping my last update would be the end of everything, but things got crazier than we would have expected. I've tried to write this time and time again, but each time I did, something crazier happened. So sorry if this post is a little rough around the edges. For a while, it all seemed like a bad soap opera. Things went from bad to worse to outright ridiculous. A lot of stuff has happened since my last post, so I apologize if I ramble, and appreciate if you have read my other posts so far. If you've not read the previous posts, a quick recap. My husband worked with someone who became infatuated with him and turned up at our house with fake evidence of their affair, but she was and is mentally unwell. So my husband and I agreed with her older brother, Wayne, fake name, he is the father of the niece, that ex-colleague Sarah, fake name, went to stay with her aunt and uncle 4 hours away who would help her recover and make sure that she stayed on her medication until she was healthy enough to get a job again and trust her to stay on her medication. Wayne promised us they would contact him if there was anything important to report, and in turn, he would contact us if she went missing in their care. So everything was going well until late March. My phone was in the house and I was doing some gardening in the front while the weather was warm, and I look up and Sarah was in front of me. She was smiling and oh so glad that she caught me when I was home because she kept showing up when none of our cars were in the driveway. Before I even managed to process her presence, she yells with excitement that she is pregnant and my husband is the father. I swear my eyebrows contorted in confusion so much I couldn't see for a moment. It was evident that she had not been on her medication, not because she was a mess, she was dressed very well and looked well cared for, but she was still under the impression that my husband had this forbidden romance with her. She goes on to tell me that their love child is due in mid-June, and that as I've been a dutiful wife and stuck by my husband through his infidelity, then we have to get along if I'm to be in their love child's life, and she hopes that I do not hold a grudge of their love against their child. Which is all well and good if there was a chance what she said was accurate, but I will state again that there is no way that he could be the father. He doesn't have the time for an affair. With 4 kids, work, our joint social life, and his hobbies that are in our house, and our joint hobbies, unless he is actively cheating on his commute to and from work, there is no chance. Also, with her due date, she would have gotten pregnant before she even met my husband. I mean, he had a little something to do with the interview process by glancing over her resume, but they didn't actually meet until she started working. As soon as she left, I found my phone had numerous missed calls from Wayne and messages and voicemails begging to call him back, so I called him back to get more information before I called my husband. Wayne confirms that his aunt slipped up when she was giving him an update on Sarah's condition, which led to her spilling everything that had happened. I was not witness to this conversation, so I don't know the full details, but I do know there was an argument, and it resulted in finding out the following. As soon as she got to their aunt and uncle's house, that she admitted she was pregnant. They jointly decided that she wouldn't take the antipsychotics until she gave birth to her baby. She promised that she would stay away until after the baby was born, but she was adamant my husband was the father, and then decided the day before she needed to let us know. She is a curvy lady, so I may not have seen a 4 to 5 month baby bump when she turned up at my house, but I was a bit preoccupied when she turned up. There goes my bragging about my observation skill set. According to Wayne, their aunt and uncle were of the impression that my husband was the father of the baby as a result of a one-night stand, and that he was denying his cheating on me, and that she became obsessive after this event. But apparently she could do no wrong in their eyes, so accepted all of this and took her at her word without confirming this with Wayne. So all of the updates that we had from them was just lip service. Wayne was just as upset as we were. He knew his sister was spiraling in this delusion, and his family that were meant to support her were letting this happen. So I relayed all of this to my husband, who was understandably upset and concerned for our safety. We log this with the police and decide that we can go forward with a restraining order after paternity is proven, as at that moment, it is just he said, she said, because my husband could not prove that he never touched her. The next time Sarah showed up in early April, we see her approaching, we send our kids upstairs, and casually walk outside to talk to her. I did not want to talk to her where there were no other cameras, I don't want her near my kids, and I didn't want her knowing the layout of my home. She asks to go inside and rubs her rounding stomach. I firmly tell her no. My husband tells her that he wants a paternity test, which she seems offended by because she never cheated on him, but to prove that the baby is his, she agrees to have one after the baby is born. As infuriating as this situation is, it's understandable as it's her body. I admit if this was the first time I had met her witnessing the conversation, I would be seriously questioning my husband. She seemed genuine, coherent, and confident even. That was the scary part, that she fully believed that my husband was her baby's father. I've seen mental illness before, and have never witnessed anything like this. She just seemed so sincere, until she asked for money to support his unborn child and get things, as even though she was staying with family out of town, and as she no longer had a job with their affair getting out, she wanted to be on her own by the time the baby was born. We refused, and told her that if paternity was proven, then we would help. Late April, we get a call from my husband's parents, who, despite knowing the situation, asked my husband if there was a chance the baby could be his, and after reaffirming the no, they explained that they were at home and got a knock at the door and that it was Sarah. She wanted to introduce herself because once the baby was born, she wanted them involved in the baby's life. They knew who she was already and what happened, so we gave them strict orders to not upset her because we do not know what she's capable of, just that she's pregnant and unmedicated. My husband was disappointed and worried, but understood that they had to ask at least once. His no was enough for them. We do not know how she located their address. We think that she may have followed us at one point, or maybe it was on his personnel file that she saw as his previous address. We checked with our kids that nobody they didn't know had approached them, and they said no. Even checked to make sure that if they had been told to keep secrets, confirmed no, even our youngest, but they were never alone anyway. A week after this, she came to our house when we had people over for a barbecue. Our kids were at my in-laws, and we had an opportunity to try to relax with our friends. We spoke briefly about what happened recently, and then she was walking through my kitchen into the garden like she owned the place. She was cradling her rounder stomach and started introducing herself. This was the first time our friends had taken a look at her, but she was not allowed to stay for long. My husband ushered her out quickly, followed by me. Everything about trying to keep her calm to not trigger a mental health breakdown evaporated then. There were words exchanged, that she cannot come to our house. It was not possible for him to be the father of her unborn baby, as they had never slept together, they never had a relationship, he didn't owe her any money. My husband let loose on her all of the frustrations. We saw Sarah's face sort of break. No violence on our part, but for a second, she looked confused and shocked, and then she left quite quickly. We got Wayne on the phone after Sarah left to tell him what had happened. He was going to search for her and found her later on that night. I started the process of putting our home up for sale. I needed a place that was a fortress, and despite loving our home, knowing she just seemed to be turning up when she wanted, I didn't feel safe and secure there anymore. My husband and I discussed bringing the restraining order forward, but we didn't want to trigger any mental health breakdown. I don't blame them for gossiping. If it was happening to someone that I was acquainted with, I would probably think the same, but we were lucky that it wasn't any of our close friends or family that were gossiping. She turned up when we were visiting my relatives. The camera caught her looking inside our house through the windows. She didn't seem too coherent at that time. She stood outside the house for a long time, and she was talking gibberish to herself and seemed paranoid. Seeing this made me accept an offer on our home and pick out a lovely new home in a gated community. We're in the process of moving now. Wayne reached out and advised that Sarah had the baby, who looked a lot like her ex. Asked if my husband still wanted to do the DNA test because it obviously wasn't his, which he agreed to because he wanted to put this behind us and to remove any possible doubt from me. I told him that I never doubted him because I didn't. I was scared of the situation, and behind closed doors, we had a lot of heated discussions because we were stressed out, but never because I thought that he could be the innocent child's father. We also agreed so she could not ask for child support at a later time. The aunt and uncle had been corrected on their misunderstanding of the situation and also berated for the enabling behavior of Sarah. Some tough but necessary conversations were had with them, according to Wayne. Once they understood what had happened, they were mortified and wanted Wayne to pass on their apologies. He had taken PTO and will be staying with them for a while. After Sarah had the baby, her brother, aunt, and uncle gave her the ultimatum that she takes her medication in front of them every day and to not try to contact us, or else they put her into a mental health facility while her brother looks after the newborn until she is well enough to be released. She agreed to take the medication. DNA came back, and surprise, my husband is not the father. The look of relief and happiness on his face was priceless. It's been a crazy 6 to 7 months, but things have calmed down now. Sarah's doing well, apparently, but still struggling as a new mother. Wayne is encouraging her to get in contact with her ex. She is slowly coming to terms with the fact that she didn't have an affair with my husband now that the medication is starting to take effect. I gave some baby essentials to Wayne to pass on to her as I'm packing things up to move anyway. I may have missed a few events, but if you need any clarification, let me know. I'm glad that life seems to be back to normal. My 43 male, girlfriend, 36 female, asked to open the relationship, and I just pointed her to the door. So, like the title says, my girlfriend asked that we open the relationship, and I just pointed her to the door. Was it too much? I strongly believe that in a monogamous relationship, when someone asks to open it, well, it's because that person saw something else out there and is ready to try it instead of working on the relationship. Basically, they are blindsiding his or her partner. So I've been with Fran over the last 2.5 years, almost 2 as a couple. I thought that things were going smoothly and was about to ask her to move in at the beginning of April. But lately she was acting rather distant, so I decided to wait a little and watch. I was cheated on in the past, so I'm a little cautious with some signs. Out of nowhere this last Friday, she asked me to open the relationship. She gave me this big speech, and when she ended her presentation, I asked her if she has someone in mind, because it's not like we decided today and basically going out with other people tomorrow. Basically, I tricked her into telling me what I already knew. And yes, she does have someone in mind, which means to me that either she already did it or she has it all set up. So I got up, walked around the apartment while she was trying to sell this, that could be good for the both of us and our relationship, and by the time she ended talking, I handed her one of my sport bags with all of her stuff in it and told her to leave the spare key on the table on her way out, that we are done and she knows why. Then I went to the couch and turned on the TV, just trying to look indifferent and save face. She was speechless for a while. She was about to cry, but before she could say something, I told her that I didn't want to talk about anything and that she should leave. As soon as she left, I felt like crap, so unworthy. I cried a little bit, and as right now, I am still mourning that loss. My phone has been going almost nuclear with all the calls and texts I received from friends of both sides about my extreme reaction over her simple request. I don't know what she told them. So now I'm sitting here wondering if I really went overboard, and at the same time fighting the urge to run back to her, because deep inside, even knowing my feelings for her is still there, the trust is gone, and I'm not going to spend all my time watching her movements. It's not healthy. Maybe in time, but I really don't know. Before anyone points out, yes, I know my reaction is a pure reflection of me, not what she did or was about to do or could do, so my question is, did I go overboard? In the comments, what you did was fine. If she wasn't satisfied with the relationship, she should have handled that with you, not by planning a sex date with someone else. OP replies, thanks, my point exactly. I've never understood this. She said what she wanted, you said no, now she's shocked. And it's not like she wanted a new mountain bike. You were very nice to her considering what she did. Anyone who says any different is no friend of yours. OP replies, it's not like I think I did wrong, but some of my friends are trying to patch things up because they care, and are telling me that my actions were too extreme in the hope that we could find a way back. So even though it sounds silly, asking for perspective from unknown people does help. Ask those friends if they're willing to open their marriage so you can F with their wife and see what they say. Any Limit says, you handled this perfectly. You did nothing wrong. She already had feelings for another person, at least sexually, so she should go have fun with them. She just doesn't get to go have that fun and have you. If people in your life don't understand that, then they can pound sand too. Nah, man, you killed it. You are the person everyone should aspire to be. More than half of the open relationship posts here could be easily avoided if people had a fraction of your courage. Power to you. Hope you find someone better. Take care. Half the people who get involved in open relationships only realize they made a wrong move by the time they're in a bathroom crying, while 2/3 of a threesome continues to go on in another room. Yeah, honestly, I do feel like we see posts with open relationships and people attempting to do them quite a lot on Reddit, although we don't often hear of these success stories. We do hear of the success stories in the comments, but I feel like it's easy to brush those off. I do myself wonder how successful open relationships and thruples are in this day and age. It just feels as though all I'm exposed to online, especially with Reddit, is their failings and the partner that is on the receiving end of that failure posting online very negatively, so I have a negative bias against open relationships in some ways because of that. But honestly, this is another example, as you guys pointed out in the comments at some point, of there's no need to talk. This is way past the point of talking. We're just going to break up, and that's that. I'm not happy with pursuing this relationship further. Because yes, communication is often the way to solve issues like this, but sometimes communication isn't enough and it's better to just part ways. And I can applaud OP for doing that. Update. First of all, thanks for all the replies and upvotes. It never crossed my mind that this post would have this much attention. I just wrote this in order to put down my ideas and to vent a little bit, and with the hope, I guess, that a few people would tell me if I went overboard or not. But I didn't expect the amount of replies I got. So many thanks to all of you for that. Some people pointed out that I maybe did go overboard, that maybe she wasn't aware of my position on the subject. I replied to some, but there were too many comments to get back to all. So to clarify, maybe a year back approximately, we had a couple of friends in a similar situation, and for a month, that was the main theme of conversation on our friend groups, and every time I said that for me is a big no, and if one person in a relationship needs to be with other people, well then he or she should just leave. About the friends trying to mend things, well, they weren't totally aware of the situation. Yesterday after I posted here, and with my ideas more defined, I went to see a group of them and told them my point of view. All of them agree with me on different levels. Some of them wanted to let it go, others wanted to burn her at the stake. Of course, a few girls in the group pointed out that I could do things in a better way, and also there was a few questions about if I could consider giving her another chance. But for me, the main issue is not feelings. I know that I love her, but the trust is gone, and I don't want to find myself wondering all the time what she's up to. After I left, my friends talked to other people that weren't there, and basically the waters have calmed. If you're wondering what she's doing, I really don't know. I got a few texts from her, but haven't read them yet, and I don't think that I will do it soon. Anyway, I know it's not much, but this is all I've got for now. In the comments, Comfortable Law says, I think you should talk to her and ask her what she thought was going to happen, since you always made it clear that opening up the relationship was a big no for you. I don't think you reacted badly. I think she's the one who should be forever ashamed of herself for that. I hope everything works out for you. And OP replies, I don't know. Actually, I have given this a lot of thought. I don't know if I would get a satisfactory answer. I don't find any logic, because she knew me, and she should know part of me thinks that she wanted to break up to be with this guy, but she didn't want to be the crappy girl that left one guy to be with the other, and maybe was hoping for an aggressive overreaction from me, so that she could leave, pointing out that I was the bad guy, and avoid that her friends made judgment of her. Maybe in a few days I would be ready to have that talk, but not for now. Final update. Hello to every stranger interested in how things ended. I wasn't much on the idea about posting any other update, but some people have been asking, so here it is. Finally, after listening to various friends and some Reddit users, I talked to her, just to sort things out. Last Friday, we met up at our regular place where we have coffee. From a distance, she looked great. So great that I just wanted to say screw it and drag her back to my place. It took a lot of restraining to not do it. When I got close to her, I noticed her sadness, and she still has her eyes irritated from crying. We sat, and before she could say a word, I asked her to tell me the entire story and to please not leave anything out of it. That I need it, and then I would ask her a few things, and I also needed all of the truth. The story is pretty basic. Around 2 months before she asked for the open relationship, on her girls' dancing night out, they meet this exotic, good-looking guy. During the first month, he was the new flavor that all the single friends in the group were trying out, which led the girls to taking shared experiences. Eventually, this guy that was having his way with all the girls around him set his eyes on Fran and begun to flirt with her, taking her to the dance floor and having fun. Well, here is where she should have stopped things, because we had an agreement with dancing night that she would stay away from any guy, because we guys are pigs, and it's pretty rare that a guy just wants to dance. Anyway, because of the excitement, she went for it, enjoyed the attention of this guy, and had a great time dancing. Looking at the timeline, this was around the time that I noticed Fran was distant. Moving forward a few weeks, her friends were sharing more intimate stories about this guy, and that got into her mind. She found herself fantasizing doing it with him, and he was trying to make a move on her too. But from what she told me, she didn't go for it because she was with me. Drinks and drunken friends are bad counselors, and once the idea of the open relationship came out, there were 2 weeks chatting about how to convince me that because a long time ago I had threesomes and also swinged a little, I should be okay with the idea of an open relationship. But threesomes and swinging are things that you do as a couple and out of pure excitement, at least for me, and was a long time ago in my early 20s. All this led to the day that she asked to open the relationship. She told me that she and her friends never thought that I would end the relationship in that moment, and that the worst scenario would be me getting angry and saying no. So there is no big deal in just asking. At this point, I interrupt her and tell her that she should know better. We were together for over 2 years and always shared my thoughts about everything with her, and she agrees. At this point, I explained to her that I didn't break up with her for the question, I did it because there was already a guy, so for me, that was a major trust issue. If this was some concern that came out naturally, maybe we could have worked it out, and in the worst scenario, maybe we could have found an alternative, but the way things were, it was an alert for me. We went around the topic for a while, and then I began to question her. Basically, I asked if she was intimate with him at some point, and she said she wasn't. I asked if she developed some feelings for him, and she said no, she didn't. And lastly, if she has been seeing this guy again, and that was also a no. Even if that's not much, that was some small relief. But I explained to her that I can't go back to her. I need to end this for my own health. Also, I told her that we share a lot of friends, and I don't want to lose any of them because of this, and it wouldn't be fair to ask them to choose, so we can behave like adults and keep things friendly. If my friends take one side, it's because they want to, not because I asked them to. She said how sorry she is, that if she could, she would undo everything, but she knew that it can't be done. She was about to cry, and me too, so it was a good moment to ask for the check and leave. I walked her to her car, opened the door for her, just a habit of mine, and then she started to cry. I couldn't help and hug her. We stood there for about 10 minutes, and when she calmed down, she got into her car and drove away. I was in shock. I went and grabbed my camping gear and drove up to the mountain and spent all weekend there to clear my mind. Early in the morning, I was driving back to the city, and the moment my phone grabbed signal, it got flooded with messages from friends and family, all worried because basically I disappeared without telling anybody. I text back to everyone telling them that I was okay, that I went out camping, and at the moment was driving to work. Also, I got a text from her, something along the lines that she feels that we are not over yet, and that she thinks I need time to leave all this behind me, and she will wait in the hope of it. I haven't texted her back because I'm pretty sure I'm done, but experience has taught me to never say never. So for now, I'm gonna take it easy, doing what I like and seeing where things take me. Well, that's it. Thanks for all of your support and advice. In the comments, good job standing up for yourself. The moment she got another guy in her mind, she is no longer respecting you. Do not take her back. There are plenty of good women out there that will treat you right. Well, now she can get all the attention and sexual experience with any guy she wants, while being single, of course. Only vile humans wish to explore their sexual desires while still in a relationship with others. OP replies, to be fair, the mind does play tricks on us, so having thoughts or fantasies is pretty normal. Taking action is the issue. Here is where I draw the line. I don't wish her ill or anything. At the moment, I'm just a little bit sad, I'm not gonna lie. Going back has crossed my mind a lot of times, but I just play in my mind the scenario of me back with her and always wondering and having the need to check her phone, and that's a big no for me. I don't believe she is vile, only we weren't on the same page. Also, I think deep inside she wasn't on the same page with her own self. Anyway, time to move forward and see what life has ahead for me. Only one scribe says, wait, so all of her friends were taking turns banging this dude and telling each other about it, and she wanted to be the next one to do him after all of her other friends? Who does this? And why would he still want to be friends with their mutual friends after learning that this is what's happening on girls' nights? I was thinking the same thing, being passed around like some Doritos and she's like, I got next. Nah. You know, I never thought it was so common for people to ask for open relationships until I joined Reddit. To be honest, confirmation bias does kick in. You don't hear about people who didn't ask for it because there's no drama to happen. I guess all's well that ends well in this situation. Like, I can empathize with OP in this situation and see why he feels as though he might want to go back to her in the future, never say never. But as that comment pointed out, the fact that he wants to stick around with that friend group after all of them want to just have a go with this guy and then share their experiences, that to me is very weird. Like, pop off, absolutely, have your fun, but that's not a particular group of people that I want to associate with personally, because especially if my partner is running in those circles, are we not guaranteed to have a situation like this arise once again if that's the culture of your friendship circle? Like, I don't know, I don't trust that at all. And yeah, as he said, the trust is gone. If he was with her again, he'd never not want to check her phone to be absolutely sure that something like this isn't popping up once again. That's just me though. I'd love to know what you guys think of this down in the comments below. Am I the asshole for not allowing my stepson, 12 male, to live with us? I have 2 boys, 10 male and 5 male, and I'm getting married in the next few weeks to my boyfriend, who has a 12-year-old son from a previous relationship. My future husband's son asked his dad if he could come live with us after we get married because he wants to experience a genuine family dynamic with parents and siblings, given that his biological parents never married anyone else. My husband is on board with this idea, believing that it would contribute positively to the boy's personal growth. I expressed to my husband that I have reservations about having him live with us based on observations during the weekends that he spent at our place. Firstly, he appears to have a strained relationship with my youngest son. He rarely includes him in activities unless I specifically prompt him to do so. When I ask him to assist the younger boy, such as accompanying him to the bathroom, he does so with obvious reluctance. Secondly, he displays an excessive competitive streak towards my oldest son. He consistently aims to outperform him and even taunts him when he succeeds. I find this overly competitive atmosphere uncomfortable. I desire my children to grow up in a nurturing and supportive environment. The third and most significant concern is his academic and behavioral performance. My boyfriend has informed me that his son has been struggling academically and has faced minor behavioral challenges. I am concerned about his potential negative influence on my children, particularly my oldest son. My husband dismisses these concerns as typical for his age, believing that with our guidance, he could improve. I sought advice from my mother, and she disagrees with me, asserting that providing a united family environment could greatly benefit my stepson. Both of them label my reasons as unreasonable. Am I the asshole? Edit, many people didn't quite catch the bathroom example that I provided. Let's say we're at a park. I can't let my 5-year-old go to the bathroom alone, so I might have my stepson accompany him for safety reasons. It's the kind of thing an older child should do for a younger one. In the comments, Panda Frank Opinions says, "You're the asshole. You are marrying his father, so you should start considering him as your son as well. If your eldest son, 10 male, started displaying all of these behaviors, then surely you wouldn't just kick him out and give up on him. I would get your boyfriend on board with ways to deal with the behaviors that you are not happy with." Exactly. Behavioral challenges can easily stem from the fact that he is experiencing this split family situation. They should definitely do family counseling though if they all move in together. OP is describing every sibling situation I have ever encountered, especially when it's 3 boys. OP, your kid is 5. Take him into the ladies' room. My gods, these are a you issue. Don't ever get married to anyone ever. These are not behavioral challenges. These are, let's parentify the new sibling, and we don't actually know anything about healthy child development or blended households. Plus, it's completely normal for a 12-year-old to not include the 5-year-old. If the 10-year-old has friends over his age, he would completely ignore his little brother as well. Children see so much younger siblings and including them as embarrassing within their friend group. It doesn't mean the stepson will not learn to be helpful with the little one. He just never had to, so doesn't know better. I have kids around the same ages, and it's routine in my home for the bookends to leave out the middle one, because kids, that's why. I would expect a sibling to buddy up for the bathroom, but I wouldn't expect a brand new step-sibling to be comfortable or willing to do this. It's not an automatic thing. We could work up to it, sure. NG945 says, "You're the asshole. He is your soon-to-be husband's son. He is as entitled to live under the roof as your children are. End of. I cannot believe this is real." He should tell her that her kids should stay with their dad and not come with her after marriage. I wonder what she would think. Well, suddenly there would be a problem because these are her children. She wants to pretend like his son doesn't exist. That's pretty obvious. Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with what these comments are saying. It's such an unhealthy dynamic to just not want to include this soon-to-be son in your family. Like OP, if you are marrying this man, then this child is becoming your son. You don't just abandon children, especially your own children, just because they're not related to you biologically. That's really messed up. And look, he's expressed his willingness to be part of a stable family unit because at 12 years old, he recognizes the challenges of growing up without something like that, and he yearns for stability. But yet, as a result of the negative consequences of not having a stable family unit and him not exhibiting the same emotional control and perhaps social conditioning that your children that grew up with a stable household by the sounds of it have, that's grounds enough for you to be like, no, not even gonna give you the opportunity to grow in a healthy environment. I don't know, that just hits me deep as unimaginably cruel to even bring this up. Ah yes, the reasonable and sane thing to do is to bring this child into a happy and healthy household where he will grow and develop into a well-rounded person. But no, because he's a little bit of a bad egg, screw him, he can go live out in the street. I just have no words. Yes, you're worse than the asshole here, OP. Update. I know that I am not the best person, but I never mistreated or ignored my future stepson. I care for him and would never think of hurting him. I realize now that I was being overly protective of my own children and not considering things from my future stepson's perspective. I was afraid that my future stepson might bully my kids. For example, excluding the younger one from activities he enjoys, like building with Legos, or teasing the older one when he wins. But now I can see that if he wants to live with us, it's because he cares about his future siblings. Moreover, as a responsible adult, I understand that I have an obligation to help him with behavior and school grades. I talked to my boyfriend, and I accept that he can come live with us. Now, we'll need to move to a new house so that each child can have their own room, and we'll have to work on getting custody. Our next post is by user ThrowRA titled, Someone in my, male 22, friend group congratulated my girlfriend, female 23, on starting a business, and it led to a huge argument. My girlfriend Jane recently started a side business of being a baker after graduating college, and she bakes out of her home. She took some commission during college but didn't have the time to fully commit to it, so she only did it on the side during college. It is not her main job now, but she hopes it can be someday. It's where her passion is, and her mother used to bake a lot too, thus how she learned. She mostly does cupcakes and cookies by word of mouth, and a lot of people used to reach out to her personal Instagram to ask about orders. She recently created a new Instagram specifically for orders and posting photos of her pastries, and that's her business Instagram now. However, it led to an argument within our friend group that has caused distance between some, and that's why I'm posting today. We were friends in high school, but we started dating about 4 months ago for context. Crystal is the friend that she had an argument with, and she is very politically active. She is more so Jane's friend from college, and Jane invited her out into our friend group. She also introduced me to Crystal, who she met in one of her classes. Crystal has a second Instagram account that promotes and reposts inspiring stories, and she often gives a written commentary on each post that she shares. When Jane opened her business and made her baking Instagram, Crystal screenshotted the page and made a post telling people to congratulate her friend who started a Black-owned business, along with how she was proud of her, and she left a link to Jane's page. However, Jane had an issue with it, and she saw the post and reacted to it before I learned about it when we were with our friend group at a barbecue on Friday. A few of us were sitting at a table when Jane confronted Crystal in front of everyone, and she said she wanted Crystal to remove the post. When Crystal asked why, she said she didn't ask permission to do a shoutout, but she didn't stop there. She said she didn't appreciate being congratulated for starting a Black-owned business because being Black had nothing to do with it, and she said that it was disrespectful to the skills she learned. She also said that it was disrespectful to her parents because she was mixed. Her mum is Black and Hispanic, and her dad is white, but when Crystal said that she thought that it was inspiring, she said that shoutout was unearned, because she didn't want to be inspiring or make everything about race, and this was when I told her that it wasn't the right place for the conversation because Jane was getting really upset, but she told me to shut up and that it had nothing to do with me. But when Crystal asks why she was getting upset, she said it was because Black Lives Matter was an easy way to get likes for her Instagram and that it wasn't genuine. She even joked that she could choose to buy a black car instead of a white one and she would spin it into something political. Crystal apologized and she'd take it down, but someone else, John, sitting there, said Jane was being ridiculous and called her not Black. I immediately told John that that was out of bounds, but Jane snapped at me again and said that she didn't need me to stand up for her. Jane then told John that Crystal never asked for her consent, but Crystal left the table as John told Jane that she was being ungrateful and should have just accepted the shoutout. Jane then said that she wasn't there to argue with John and went to look for Crystal, but when I followed and told her that we should just leave, she decided to go to the car and leave because she didn't want to go back outside to where John was. There is more to the argument that involved other people, but for the sake of time and this already being long, I'll just include the main people in Crystal and John. When we were driving home, I asked Jane why she didn't talk to me about the post before the party. I learned about it for the first time at the party, but she said that it didn't concern me because Crystal was her friend. When I said that the barbecue wasn't the right place to address it in front of everyone, she said the post was on her mind since it was posted a few days ago. And the barbecue was the next time that she would have seen Crystal. But when I asked why she didn't call her instead of doing it in front of everyone, she said she didn't think of that but wanted to do face-to-face. When I told her that I felt dismissed by how she snapped at me twice, she said she was sorry, but that she didn't want me to defend her. Crystal took down the post on the same Friday night. However, John went on social media on Saturday and ranted about how Jane didn't think she was black, and she engaged him in the comments last night, which led to me making this post. When I called her yesterday to talk about John, she didn't want to talk about the rant, and reminded me not to try and defend her, so I didn't press her. Honestly, I've kind of felt dismissed over the weekend, and she's never really dismissed me in all the years that we've been friends. Granted, we only started dating 4-ish months ago, but it still hurts. When I asked if we could talk about how I felt dismissed yesterday, she said that we could when she cooled down, but that she didn't want to do it immediately. She wants me to stay out of it, and it honestly hurts. I should have added this earlier, but I am Chinese for context. And for more context, Jane is also supportive of BLM, like Crystal, and we have both been to a few events together. We have also gone to Pride walks with friends and BLM walks during 2020 especially, but she doesn't want me to have any say at all in this matter. I want to ask what would be the best way to go about this, as she doesn't want to talk until she's cooled down, and I also want to ask if this is a cause to be concerned, and how to help her through what's happening with John and everything. Sorry for this being so long, but there were a lot of angles and context needed. In the comments, Disposable Witch says, "I'm saying this as a black person. John sucks the stars out of the sky. He's being really divisive for seemingly no reason to Jane's relationship with her race. Part of the fight for equality is the fact that not every black person should have to be a freedom fighter constantly struggling. The goal, in my opinion, is to have a day where we can just be." That said, Jane's comment about making everything about race and implying mentioning BLM and people supporting other black-owned businesses isn't genuine also sucks the wind out of the West. Whether we like it or not, the world judges us by what it sees. I desperately wish I could live in a world where I wasn't constantly fighting people to prove that I belong. I wish I didn't have to justify my presence in certain neighborhoods to police. I wish I didn't have to read every few months about someone being gunned down in the streets because their life was deemed as worth less than a few packets of cigarettes or something, and a bunch of comments being so openly hateful to black people. I wish people could just see me as a geologist as opposed to a black geologist. But that's not the world that we live in, and unfortunately John was kinda right about being a role model to kids, whether you like it or not. People are going to see her as a brown woman, regardless of the intricacies of her race, making her way in the world by doing what she loves, and that's something a lot of brown people don't get to see for ourselves. She shouldn't so easily shirk that aspect. Regardless though, it was wrong to blast her on social media without her consent and doing so in a way that ignored important parts of her identity as a mixed person. I have no clue how to solve this stuff with John and the harassment other than a public address on her business page and blocking and reporting all of the nasty stuff. I hope y'all make it through just fine. Update. Before I get to my update, I want to say that I'm grateful to the commenter in my first post who said that I was overreacting by telling Jane that I was hurt by how she told me to shut up despite her apologizing. I just felt the urge to try and defend her when John said everything that he did, and the commenter that said that Jane was more than capable of defending herself, and to not personalize it too much, and focus on supporting her instead, and that made my first post worth it already to have learned that. I also apologized to Jane for overstepping my boundaries, and she apologized to me again for telling me to shut up, even though I told her that she didn't have to. I told her that I would let her handle it, and that I didn't want to make it seem like she couldn't defend herself. But she said she would value my advice because we were in it together, and she apologized for excluding me too. I'm writing again because John has continued to go after her along with a few others, and I want to ask for advice on how to best support her. Lastly, before the update, the most that Jane responded to John on Facebook was telling him to stop talking about her in a single reply, nothing more, nothing less. John continued to rant in reply to her response, but she didn't respond anymore. Crystal replied to John in the comments of his original post and told him that the situation had nothing to do with him. She also told him that she was wrong to shout out Jane without her consent, and then apologized to her following the party, and that she wanted to apologize publicly too. Crystal also made a post on her Instagram apologizing for the shoutout too, after deleting it. She also called Jane and told her that she felt terrible for everything that John was doing, that she said was her fault, and she said she hoped it didn't ruin the friendship. Jane told me that she was a little surprised with her second apology, but she accepted it, and both agreed that John was way overboard. Jane also apologized for going overboard in what she said to Crystal in front of everyone, and admitted that John's involvement made her more upset that she wrongfully took out on her. More on that later. Similarly to Crystal, John is very politically active on his socials, and he is also black for context to the situation, as is Crystal. John made an Instagram reel about Jane and stated that she wasn't proud of her heritage. He also stated that she shouldn't have gone into a business as a black woman if she didn't intend to be a role model to young girls, and that he was going to make sure people didn't support her business, which really surprised us by how personal he's taking it. He even had the nerve to tag Jane's personal and business Instagram, and Jane has received some vulgar DMs as a result, along with comments on some of her pastries. He also stated that she tried to throw something at him when he suggested being a role model at the party, something that never happened because nobody became violent. He also said that he didn't report her to the police because black people have to build each other up, and he wants Jane to learn from the situation because she has a responsibility to be a role model whether she likes it or not. He also wrote that Jane once told him that she wasn't black, which is another lie. He also shared his video on Twitter and Facebook while tagging Jane's pages in both, and the majority of our friend group have called him out in the comments, but that hasn't stopped him. He has continued to post about her on numerous days following the incident, and our friend group decided to cut him out as a result. We met a few days after everything John posted, and Jane and Crystal apologized to the group for having their argument at the host's party and ruining the event, but they were really accepting of it. Some also said that John had a habit of going overboard with his opinions, but that they overlooked it to not rock the boat on many occasions, something they regret and some apologized for too. We talked about how John said he's trying to ruin Jane's business, and they told us that they were commenting on his videos and will continue to do so, although he blocked some of them on his socials already. So they began thinking of ideas of how to help Jane's business be protected from him. The last thing I'll say is this. In regards to why Jane exploded at Crystal at the party, she said it was because John reposted the shoutout that Crystal made, and she thought that he was involved with it too. She also said she was upset because John had a history with her that I didn't know about, and she told me about it. John once DM'd her about how she made pride/trans-themed cupcakes for June, but didn't do anything for Black History Month. Jane also thanked him for the suggestion and said that she would do it along with other potential suggestions, but he called her out for not thinking of it herself, along with thinking that she's better than other black people. Jane apologized to me for internalizing it and said that she wanted to work through things together going forward, and hopefully we can become stronger because of it. But a lot of what she yelled at Crystal about was actually meant for John because she thought that he was involved in Crystal's post, and she admitted that she was wrong and apologized to Crystal about it too, and she also shared that bit with our friend group when we met to discuss John. I'm open to any suggestions on how to deal with John, as he has continued to post about her after his initial videos, and I really want to thank anyone who replies. In the comments, Imoregan says, I feel like there are a lot of underlying issues that weren't talked about by OP. Jerregret says, "It seems like John told Jane that she isn't black enough, and so when the shout-out for her black-owned business happened, she was already sensitive about the whole issue, specifically where John is involved. Jane wants to be seen as more than just her race, and for her business to succeed outside of her race, but John says that she is not black enough, while I'm assuming she is probably seen in other circles as black when there is more to her heritage. Of course, this analysis is coming from a white girl with no real experience in these matters, so shrug." OK Professional says, "Black woman here who thinks you were spot on, John decided to play gatekeeper. He didn't like OP's girlfriend's statement about not just being black. He twisted that to mean something it didn't. OP's girlfriend is multiracial. She can also identify any way she chooses. John used this argument between friends for internet clout. I do hope that someone exposes him." Training Constant says, "My takeaway from this is that John is somewhat obsessed with Jane and he needs to maybe keep his mouth shut. He sounds like those 5-year-olds who try to get a girl's attention by being rude to her." I don't know, it seems to me like John likes Crystal and went way overboard trying to defend her. Crystal even commented on John's post where he attacked Jane and admitted that she was wrong to give the shout-out without her consent and told him to stop, but he didn't listen to her. Oof, yeah, this has been quite the saga, this post, that's for sure. I guess I've been hesitant to really comment on it myself because I don't really know if it's my place to say anything about this, but what I can say is that this is a goddamn mess. And yeah, like that first comment said, I feel like there is a lot of underlying issues not being brought up, and so much context in this second post that was brought to light that is like, oh, things are starting to make sense now. But yeah, I don't agree with John's actions here. I don't understand why he's going so crazy. I kind of would like to get his side of the story if ever possible. I want to know why he's going so hard because there's got to be a reason. I don't think he's just crazy. At least I hope he's not. But yeah, it seems as though things spiraled way out of control when he decided to butt into this situation, and he continues to attack everyone for no logical reason from my point of view. What do you guys think? I would love to know in the comments down below. Would I be the asshole for reporting my mum and sister for stealing my car? So I, 24 male, live with my mum in a rural part of the USA. For context, when it comes to my sister, 37, she is much older and we come from different fathers and both grew up in split custody arrangements. We are not particularly close, almost acquaintances more so than siblings. I don't really feel any familial connection even though I love her. I don't feel obligated to bend backward for her. Well, sister lives 2 hours away in a much more urban area and is currently going through a divorce. Her and her ex-husband only had one vehicle, and it belongs to the ex-husband, so when they split, he took the car. Sister has 4 daughters and works a full-time job, whereas I, on the other hand, work from home and have no real external responsibilities. My mum came to me asking if my sister could borrow my car for a couple of months until the divorce is finalized, just so that she has a way of transporting her and her kids to wherever they need to be without the financial burden of purchasing another car, or relying exclusively on ride-sharing. I just recently bought my car, a V8 Mustang, and it's my first vehicle ever. I didn't get a hand-me-down or get one as a present when I turned 16 or 18. I was basically immobile, except occasionally being allowed to drive my mum's car, or when my dad had me, I could get Ubers. Getting my own vehicle was extremely liberating, minus the loan, and I don't feel trapped at home. So when I was approached with this proposal, I flat out said no. I can totally understand the justification for letting her use my car for a couple of months, but aside from the fact that I don't want to lose my newfound sense of freedom, I also just don't want someone else driving my car, and maybe that's selfish of me. Over the last few days, my mum and sister have been trying to convince me to let her use the car, saying that she would pay for the car payment while she has the car, or that she would pay for the insurance if she has it longer than anticipated. No matter what they brought to the table, I kept saying no, much to their dissatisfaction. Fast forward to this morning, I realized that my mum isn't home. I opened our garage to see that her car was still there, but mine was not. I immediately know what has happened, and I call my mum about the situation. She just tries to calm me down and have me try to picture it from my sister's point of view, but I'm just flushed with rage, and instead, just tell her that I'm going to report the vehicle as stolen instead. She just hung up the phone. As of now, I presume the car is down with my sister, and I am seriously considering reporting it stolen and naming her and my sister as perpetrator and conspirator. I really don't want it to go that far, and I hope that we could instead work this out, but what I initially said as an angry threat, I'm starting to really consider as an option. I just don't know if it's worth burning so many bridges over a car, but the fact that my family won't respect my boundaries or my property is just so frustrating. Would I be the asshole? It's insane that your mom has a car and she's not willingly giving up her car because her ability to drive around trumps yours. You know, just like a lot of people are more than happy to spend your money, but not theirs. Oh my god, take in this poor soul of a family member, but I'm not going to take them in because my hands are tied, even though I have a spare guest room over here. Your mom just tried to straight up enact some vigilante justice here, and I hope that this bites her in the ass. I really do, because you didn't deserve to be treated like this from your mom. As unfortunate as this situation is for this single mother of 4 kids, it's not your problem, and this shouldn't be forced upon you. I think you've done everything in your power to stop this from happening. I think they're going to be pissed off at you if you report the vehicle, but I think it's the right thing to do, so do it, and it doesn't make you an asshole. In the comments, Carpe Cyprinide says, "Not the asshole. This is absolutely theft and they need to learn to respect your property. Call it in." If mum wanted sis to have a car so much, mum should have offered mum's car, not your car. There is no way that your sister will respect and care for your car the same that you would. Also, with 4 daughters, it's only a matter of time before hamburger stains and soft drink spills start appearing. I would call the police. It's the only way, apparently, to get your point across, as you have said no multiple times. This, if I were feeling inclined to warn them, I would give 15 minutes on top of the time that it takes to drive from her home or work to OP's place. That's more than generous. They may say that this will ruin her life. But no, she is ruining her life by stealing an effing car. She has the opportunity to bring it back right the F now, or get picked up from her home or work by the police. The most recent activity on OP's account is 8 hours ago. I hope they've gone quiet because they've been dealing with this since an hour after posting and immediately being hit with dozens of supporting comments. Please update us when you're ready, OP. The only thing that concerns me about taking the nuclear option here is that from what it sounds like at least, they do have leverage over him, or the mum does at least, because I'm assuming the mum owns the house that he lives in. I know for me, if I were ready to take the police route, I'd also be prepared to get kicked out of the house and make sure that I have all of my stuff prepared to go beforehand. Giving someone a police record is kind of a big flaming bridge you gotta be ready to leave behind for good. OP should try to move out regardless, but they mentioned that they pay their fair share in one of the comments. They can't be thrown out without a proper eviction process. To my knowledge, I'm not a lawyer or even American. Emotional Fan 7011 says, "Report it. Your sister cannot transport 4 kids in your car. It isn't practical at all, especially if some are in car seats and booster seats. A Mustang wouldn't be able to accommodate that. And she's saying that she'll pay for your insurance, but is she insured? OP, not the asshole. Call them. Say they have 1 hour to return my car, and then I'm calling the police." Also, how cheap are Mustangs in the US? In Germany, the monthly payment alone, if you lease or finance over a reasonable time span, would be enough to lease and insure your own car and have something left over for gas. Well, that depends on the model, but they're more affordable here than in Europe. No import taxes. I got one that was a little older than OP's, which was also my first car, and I only had to get a loan for a couple $1,000s. It was paid off in a few years. Update. Thank you everyone for all the input into this situation. I sincerely appreciate it. I ended up giving them an ultimatum to return my car by business close tonight, and if they do, I would be willing to move past it and not let it affect any future relationships. I said I would also pitch in a small amount of money to help my sister rent and buy her own car. But if they don't return it by business close, I will be filing a police report that my vehicle has been stolen and that it was my mum who was the perpetrator and my sister is a conspirator. To answer a couple of questions all at once, my mum has her own car but doesn't want to lend hers out because she needs it for work every day. I had offered to let her use mine for work and she lent out her car to sister, but she refuted this idea, saying that she doesn't feel comfortable driving my car and that she needs ample space for medical supplies. She's an in-home nurse. I am well aware that my living situation will change if I call the police on my mum and sister, but honestly, the living situation is already compromised. Regardless of the resolution, I will be moving out as immediately as possible, as I am financially stable enough to do so. This whole thing is just the straw that broke the camel's back. I didn't put it in the original post, but I've been getting a lot of comments regarding living for free at my mother's house. We split bills 60-40 on basically everything. It's not truly 50-50, but absolutely by no means am I freeloading at my mum's house. We'll update again if the car has been returned or not. In the comments, Golf Signal 9401 says, I just want to say this, a 2012 V8 Mustang only seats 4 people. Your sister has 4 kids. Your sister is tying the 4th to the roof? Seriously, call the cops. Also, call your insurance after you speak to the police in case there ends up being damage to the car. Moving is a great idea. You deserve to feel like your things are safe in your home. I read the original post and noticed that fact as well, but brushed it off. Now that I'm thinking about it again, depending on the ages of the children, some may be required to be in a car seat, and even more so, be forbidden to ride in the front seat, limiting seating even more so. Your living situation will and should change, regardless of calling the police or not. You said no, and they didn't respect you enough to abide by your decision over your property. That's the very first thing that needs to change. If your sister can make the car and insurance payments on a Mustang, she can afford an old beater temporarily. There is no reason for you to pitch in. The beater car is really what his sister needs anyway, a cheap cash car that will allow her to save her money for something better. Not doing that, making payments and insurance on a V8 Mustang owned and driven by a 24-year-old. The insurance alone is probably hefty. And now, onto the final update. The car has been returned, so the police will not need to get involved. However, there is body damage that wasn't there the last time I used it. Can't tell if it was intentional damage or not, but it honestly doesn't matter. In the picture is a silvery white 2012 V8 Mustang with scratches on the bumper and a dent in the fender. I will be getting all relevant papers in order, and then we'll be lawyering up so the damages are paid for. As soon as this entire situation is resolved, I will be moving out. I've learned to never keep my keys out ever again. Thank you so much for everyone for your input and advice. In the comments, Sorry Try Again says, you should still file a police report because the insurance in court will need it. Plus, you don't know if they hit something and ran. You don't want it coming back on you. That's what I've been saying. And these people here are telling him not to call the police and give them extra time to return the car. Guaranteed he's going to be on the hook for a lot more than just body damage. All this drama just to not burn bridges. For real. His insurance may not cover this if they find out he knew that it was taken and didn't contact the appropriate authorities. Not necessarily. I used to work in auto insurance claims. Since the keys were in an accessible place and OP lives with their mom, if she takes the car, it's usually considered implied permissive use. This is in place to protect insurers if a household member uses their car without explicit permission. To nullify that, OP would have to file a police report and sign an affidavit that the car was stolen, which would cause the same issues they were trying to avoid. Auto insurance is a little better than a scam, and companies look for a reason not to cover shit whenever possible. But they aren't going to refuse to cover their customers' damages because a family member took the car without asking. Imagine the lawsuits they'd face for that. Another former claim rep here. Since OP and Mom are related and live together, Mom would likely always have coverage under the policy regardless. Again, to protect the insured. If Mum, a resident relative, took the car and gave sister permission to use it, the policy would likely reflect that as permissive use too. Filing a police report is a good idea. However, OP should expect and accept the insurance company's decision when they most likely say that they will cover this as a collision loss and not a theft loss. Of course, this varies claim to claim, insurance company to insurance company, and state to state, but generally that's how the auto insurance will work. From my experience, that damage looks to me like whoever was driving the vehicle struck a stationary object. I don't think that it was a multi-vehicle collision. OP, this is an all-around crappy situation, and I hope you can find somewhere better to live soon. Pharaoh of the Artifice says, Yikes. Intentional or not, that damage shows absolutely that these people could never be trusted with the property that they insisted on taking. And now, onto the final update. After the overwhelming majority of you told me that I need to go to the police in my last post, I've decided to report the entire situation to my local sheriff's office. I will do everything in my power to make it so charges are not pressed, which I hope is likely since the car was returned. We'll still be doing everything I mentioned in my previous post regarding getting all papers in order and moving out as soon as possible. We'll probably still look into getting a lawyer just in case. I told the sheriff's office that the car was stolen for approximately 16 hours from my mum and sister, and that when the car was returned, there was body damage that wasn't previously there. They are sending over a deputy to take a look at my car and question myself and my mum about the situation. I have group text chats that list my ultimatum, as well as some texts that were exchanged previously about my mum and sister, essentially begging to use my car, while I kept saying no. I will be making my mum or sister pay for the body damage, and if insurance won't, I will be going to court for it. I don't care how petty that is, or if it just opens an even larger can of worms. I absolutely refuse to pay $2,000+ for body damage repairs that I didn't create. Hopefully this is the actual final update I will have to post regarding this situation. Regardless of the damage, I'm just glad that I have my car back. Family situation is beyond busted, and I will be going no contact with my sister for an indefinite amount of time, and will do the same with my mum as soon as I move out, which is hopefully by the end of the month. Thank you all for your advice and input throughout this whole ordeal. In the comments, Prestigious Table says, "Thank God, and while it's not fully in your control, charges being pressed wouldn't be the end of the world. They don't seem to understand that actions have consequences, and this may be the way that they learn that. Good luck, OP. Also, a heads up, your rates may go up with your insurance, so maybe make them aware of the police reports. Generally, a DA won't pursue it if the victim is unwilling to cooperate unless it's a major crime. Even some felonies like assault won't be acted on because it's not worth their time if the victim isn't cooperating." That's what I said earlier, and many people rush to tell me that the DA could do whatever they want. The way I see it is if OP doesn't want to pursue it, the DA won't waste their time on what may look like a family matter gone wrong. Quote, "I don't care how petty that is. That amount of damage on the car is far from petty. I'd take them to the cleaners over it." Definitely sounds like a revenge smash as well. I remember when OP was posting this, and I hadn't seen any comments suggesting that it may have been intentional, and personally, that's what I was assuming to be the case. I mean, the sister not being an atrocious driver wouldn't shock me, but what are the chances that happened in such a brief period of time after stealing the car? Nate O84 says, "Damn, I would have made the ultimatum way sooner. You have 90 minutes. If the car isn't in the driveway in pristine condition and my keys are not in my hand, we'll get police involved. Oh, fill the tank too while you're at it." And yeah, that about wraps it up for that post. If I were in OP's shoes, would be supremely pissed off too. And, I understand why he wants to pull back the charges. Although yeah, those bridges are well and truly burned. He is going no contact with these two, though I respect him for reducing the fallout as much as possible. This was not at all an easy situation for OP to navigate. I would be really pissed off if my car was stolen by family and used in such a manner. But thank God more damage wasn't done. Thank God he has the ability to chase them up for money. Anyway, I want to know what you guys think of this one down in the comments below. Let me know. Our next post is by user ThrowRA77474, titled, "Am I the asshole for not wanting to use my college fund to pay for my brother's treatment? My parents divorced when I was about 7 because my dad had admitted to having an affair. My mum and I moved out of our house and into an apartment, while my dad immediately moved his mistress into our house because she was pregnant with my twin brothers. My mum was devastated, but she quickly picked herself up for us. She went back to school, and as a result, she continued climbing up in her career. My mum adjusted better to going from a double-income household to a single income, and was able to contribute a substantial amount of money to my college fund. My dad, on the other hand, had a harder time, as he now has to support a family of 4, and sometimes 5, on a single income, as his wife is a stay-at-home mother. My dad did not have much disposable income, and so did not contribute as much to the fund. I'm going to finish school soon, and I have a good shot at getting into my first choices of college. Unfortunately, my brother, 10 male, was diagnosed with a kidney disease, which has progressed to where he needs to be on dialysis. My dad is drowning in medical debt, so my mum agreed that he no longer needed to pay child support. The specialist had suggested a different treatment for my brother, as most other treatments didn't help or stopped working, and they're running out of options short of a transplant. Not doable at this time. This treatment is not covered by insurance, and it costs a lot. My dad can't take out a loan due to debt. Dad and his wife sat me down when I was over and asked if I would be willing to let them borrow my college fund to pay off my brother's treatment. They offered to pay the money back, but I knew they wouldn't be able to. I really don't want to give them the money because I know if I don't get any scholarships, I wouldn't be able to go to the college I want to without going into debt myself. My future would be at risk, and I know my dad wouldn't help if I needed it. In addition, the money technically belongs to my mum. I can't just give it away, and I know she would refuse to give them the money. My dad and his wife are furious at both my mum and I, and are trying to guilt me into it. I do feel terrible for my little brother. Am I the asshole? Edit to add, my dad does have a second job that he works on the weekend, and his wife homeschools the boys and is a full-time caregiver for my brother. My dad's family disowned him when the affair came to light. He did get some help from his brother and sister, but they can only give so much. I do think I was his last option. His wife did not have a lot of family. And lastly, of course, I would feel bad if something happened to my brother. He's just a little kid. But I would want to help him with my own money, and I can only do that if I start my career debt-free. I also don't want to risk my own future. This is a ridiculously difficult situation to tackle, and I can't imagine it's a very nice situation for you to be put in. I don't really like the fact that they're going through you to try and guilt the money out of you, instead of going through your mother and working out something that's reasonable. You are still very much young and very much impressionable. I don't think that it is up to you to decide what to do with this money. But at the same time, it's also like if you don't help, your little brother is possibly going to die. This is an absolutely terrible situation to be caught in the middle of, but I stand by you in this circumstance and say that I don't think you should do it. I think you should stick by what you're saying here and just don't give them the money. And that wouldn't make you the arsehole, so not the arsehole. In the comments, Fancy Pants Dancer says, not the arsehole. The money isn't yours, firstly. It was allocated by your mother for a specific thing. You're damn right that you are not getting the money back if you loaned them. It was grossly inappropriate for your father to ask for the money from you, who I presume is a minor. And he already said his mum wouldn't go for it, so I don't see it happening. I don't blame the OP's mother for not going for it. Her husband had an affair and kicked the OP and their mother out of the family home. The mother was pretty generous with agreeing that the father didn't have to pay child support anymore. Especially considering the cause of his debt is also the direct result of his affair. OP's mum sounds like an amazing woman, literally bootstrapping it while raising a child as a single parent, managing to contribute enough to create a significant college fund, and now she voluntarily gives up child support because of the health of a child that was now the result of the affair that broke her marriage. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she said to give up the college fund and that she would still take care of school, just because there is a sick child. But man, it wouldn't be right to even ask her though. Well, that's the thing. I feel like the mum would probably do it, but for the fact you have to pay taxes on the money if it's in a 529 savings and investment plan if you take it out for anything other than college. Capmanor 1755 says, not the arsehole. You have a lovely, understanding, and clear-eyed view of this. He would never pay you back, and you'd be stuck under college debt for the next 20 years. Ask your mum to be the bad guy. She can have her divorce attorney send a letter telling him the funds are hers to control, and she's not giving up years of her savings for him and his affair partner's expenses. She can also tell him that she'll take him to court to end his custody if he's trying to financially abuse a 17-year-old. That's a bit of a feint, since you could choose to go no contact at any point, but it might shock him out of his behavior. Also, his access to that account needs to be removed ASAP. And OP replies, he does not have access, only mum does. Your mum is smart. Tell her what your dad asked you. Yeah, just keep putting this on your mum. This is not something that you should be dealing with. Tell him that it's not your money, and your mum has said no. If he thinks that he has some legal claim to it, he can get a lawyer. OP, this is a great point. As a mum, I would 100% want to take this on for my kid, because no kid should be burdened with this. This is the kind of shit that we protect our kids from. Exactly this kind of shit. Tell your mum if you haven't. Flat out ask her to deal with it. Ask her to say that you wanted to, but she won't let you legally. I would lie for you as a mum to make things less uncomfortable. I would take any grief that would have come your way because funk that shit. You are still a kid. You may be healthy, but you're still a kid and deserve to be taken care of and protected. Update. So after I called my mum, she left work early and picked me up from Dad's house. She took me to coffee and I explained what happened. After talking a bit, she said that I could either keep the fund as is and not give Dad the money, or we can take the money that Dad had contributed and give that back to him. I told her I wanted to give Dad back the money that he put in. After we finished our coffee, Mum withdrew the exact amount that Dad had put in over the years. Mum also matched the amount and added it to give to Dad. I waited in the car while she gave Dad the money, and he was upset because the money wasn't enough. Mum told him that that's all he's going to get from her and threatened to take him to court if he and his wife keep harassing me. This is probably the last update, as I am going low contact with Dad for now. Thank you everyone for the genuine support and advice. Am I the asshole for not wanting to do a cake for my stepsister? I, 20 female, and my stepsister Clara, 28 female, never had any problems before. We stayed civil with each other, mostly because we actually don't interact that much, so there's no room for fights since we just don't see each other often. Until now. She's getting married in a couple of days, and my brother-in-law asked me for something a week ago. A cake. I do cakes and sell them, but not for a living, just so I can get a little bit more money to pay for my college, so I don't have experience doing such big cakes for such big events. My brother-in-law told me that it's not a big wedding, so I don't have to worry. It's a decently sized cake for at least 80 people. Still big, but something I can manage, so I said yes. I sent Clara a message asking for specifications, and she replied with screenshots of cakes from Pinterest. Nothing more. I had to push her further so she can give me exact ideas for the cake, since all her replies to my questions were, "It's literally in the images I sent. Can't you see?" Whatever. Days passed and I sent her a quick sketch of the cake and she didn't reply. Another day passed and I sent an image of all the things that I bought for the cake so she can tell me if that's the thing that she asked for. But again, nothing. So, I then told her how much it would cost to make the cake and that if she please pay me half now so she can pay the other half later. And this time I did get an answer, a call. She was fuming and demanding an explanation of why I'm charging her for the cake, practically yelling at me. I was confused by her reaction, and I had to explain to her that it's literally my job, and that I already bought all the things for her cake, so all I'm asking is for half of the payment. She said how dare I charge her for a cake for her special day, that family does things for each other without expecting something back, and more BS like that. Long story short, she's not paying for shit, and she made sure to make it very clear that she is not giving me a single penny. Yesterday she called me again and asked me how her cake is going. I told her I'm not doing anything since she's not paying, so if she wants a cake, then she can ask someone else. She yelled at me, cried, saying I'm a selfish bichacho, that I don't care about her, and there is no time for her to get another person, so to please stop being a bichacho and help her out. I laughed at her and hung up. Later, my dad called and told me that I'm an asshole for laughing at Clara when she is in distress, and for me to just make a stupid cake so she can stop complaining about me. I admit, I actually can do her cake since I already have the things. So that's left me thinking that, well, maybe I'm being a salty asshole. I can do her cake. I have the things already bought and her sketch made, so I don't lose anything. And my mum told me the exact same thing, and I'm genuinely starting to think that I might be the asshole here. So Reddit, am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I think I'm the asshole since I actually can do her cake. I have everything ready, and my dad told me that he is paying for it. But my pettiness and saltiness are bigger this time, so I keep refusing to. I don't know how many times it has to be repeated that mates' rates don't mean free. What is up with people in this grand delusion that your friend is doing their own business, their own specialty, therefore they can make you some expensive, extravagant thing for no cost? How about you pay them for the service you're going to provide? That sounds even better. It's also insane to me that this story got spun to everyone else, that OP just called her and started laughing at her when she was crying. I kind of don't want to know how she spun this cake situation. Maybe she said to everyone like, hey, she promised she would do it for free, and then she backed down, and then I was crying, and she's a witch. In any case, OP, I don't think you're the asshole for this one, and I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because I love it. In the comments, Professor Plum Did It says, not the asshole. And I'd tell your parents they should be ashamed of themselves for pushing you to let yourself be treated badly and taken advantage of. OP replies, I think that's what hurt me the most. They keep saying that it's not a big deal and it's getting in my mind so deep that I'm starting to feel bad. They kept dismissing my job, but when I told them that thanks to my stupid cakes, they no longer have to spend thousands on my college, and they finally stopped pushing. What isn't a big deal? Next semester's tuition? Your time? Your skills? How about your relationship and reputation with the rest of the family? Or is it just your feelings? Those don't matter in the end. Which one of these things that she destroyed doesn't matter to you? OP replies, actually, I don't even care at that point. It was only when I told my dad that the money I spent on her cake was to go towards my college, that is when they said they'll talk with Clara, but after that, I just got kicked out of the family groups and guest lists, so, her problem, not gonna lie. Yuju says, the trash took itself out. If they keep insisting, tell your parents, or whoever calls, to pay you themselves. Some people are always amazingly generous with other people's money and time. Clara sounds like a nightmare. Tell brother-in-law that you'll make the cake for his next wedding, not the asshole. And OP replies, actually, he's really nice. He overheard the fight that I had with Clara and apologized for her behavior, and he's willing to pay for the cake. I said that I appreciate his kindness, but I don't feel comfortable doing Clara's cake because all the awful things that she said about me. He's currently looking for another baker while Clara keeps telling everyone that I'm doing her cake because she's definitely not accepting that it's her own fault that she's not getting a cake from me. I feel pity for my brother-in-law, not gonna lie. Maybe save the ingredients for a cake for brother-in-law upon his divorce celebration. Sorry, that sounds evil, but brother-in-law should run now. Not the asshole. It's your job. If she wanted it for free as your wedding gift, she could have asked. But no, instead, she called you a selfish bachacho. There is no way in hell that I'd lift a finger for her. I wouldn't go to the wedding either because you know that it would be filled with her drama. Edit to add, and you know that no matter how it turned out, she would say that it wasn't good enough and blame you. There is no winning in this situation. OP replies, actually, I'm no longer in the wedding guest list, so I'm definitely not going to the wedding. It's a win-win situation, honestly. For more relevant comments, the question was asked, did you tell your brother-in-law that you needed payment in the initial conversation? And OP replies, he told me that Clara is the one who showed him a post of my cakes. I found out like 5 minutes ago that Clara lied to him, telling him that yes, I charge for my cakes, but because she's my family and because I supposedly understood how important her wedding was, that I'm not charging them, that the cake is my wedding gift. I couldn't put it in the post, but I spent money that I was saving to pay for my semester on her cake. So that money isn't something that I can spend without needing it later. Also, I was willing to sit down and talk with her, but my cousin told me that Clara is shit-talking me in the family group chat and that I'm already out of the guest list, so I'm no longer invited to her wedding. I'm not mad. I honestly get it, but that only gives me more reasons to stop being involved with her if she's acting like that. And for some more about the stepsister. She hasn't been directly mean to me, but she does shit-talk me behind my back. I stopped talking with a lot of family members because I found out that she always vents about how much she hates me because my dad left her for me, even when I'm the youngest of 3 daughters and her mum cheated on my dad. So, yeah, definitely my fault. And they agreed with her twisted mindset about me. She actually tried to get a discount because the dress is for her wedding day. a discount because she's a bride in a wedding dress shop. She's a massive joke. And yeah, lol, when she couldn't get a discount, she tried to imply to the owner of the shop that she's suddenly invited to her wedding. The owner said that she's done with weddings, but she appreciated the offer. Everyone saw through her fake invitation and pretty much ignored her for the rest of the shopping. And for the cherry on top, we paid for their honeymoon, myself and some other cousins. A week in Cabo, everything paid for, hotel, restaurant reservations, touristic rides, dinner on a yacht, etc. It was expensive AF, and we paid for everything like 5 months ago with tons of stress because certain dates didn't add up. Actually, the reason why I started to sell cakes and other desserts was because paying for their honeymoon was really expensive, and I ended up without a single penny after that. We told both of them that their gift was that, and she told us that we don't have to worry for gifts on her wedding, that the honeymoon is more than okay. But apparently it wasn't. Update. So I posted here not long ago, and I feel like it's correct to update all of you. I stood my ground and refused to do the cake. I actually made some cupcakes using Clara's cake decorations and turned it into graduation ones for my friends and their classmates. I posted it on Instagram yesterday, and some family members blocked me because of it. Mind you, there was a photo of 2 of my friends faking a proposal using one cupcake as the ring, and I posted it with a text that said, "At least these 2 are getting a wedding dessert from me." Petty, I know. Also, because yesterday was the wedding, and I wasn't invited, I spent the day with my friends instead, and later on, some of my uncles and cousins told me that I at least should have been respectful and stayed for the evening at my home. Stupid? Yes. And did I tell them that? Of course I did. That's why they blocked me or straight up ignored me. The important thing here was, there was no cake in Clara's wedding. Guests who aren't from the family asked why there wasn't a cake, and they made up a lot of stories, such as, "Oh, we just didn't want cake," or "The cake got accidentally destroyed when it was getting sent to here." And they even tried to imply that Clara was pregnant by saying something along the lines of Clara was getting nauseous over the idea of fondant, so that's why there is no cake. Anyways, the situation thankfully de-escalated, and now everyone is calm. I haven't been reached out to about the cake, besides the cupcake thing, but my cousin told me that some people were mad because I didn't show up with the cake. I was uninvited. How the hell did they want me to show up and also give them a free cake? They are delulu, just like Clara. Brother-in-law was so ashamed because of the lies that Clara said about the cake and confessed to me that he's only 1 day being married and already thinking of divorce. I actually felt bad for him and told him that I've got his back with whatever decision he makes. So that's all for this update. Thank you so much everyone for your words in my first post. It was really funny to see revenge ideas, and also a relief to see non-biased opinions on this situation since everyone was siding with Clara, and I was so close to surrender to make the cake. Actually, when I first posted, I was preparing some flour and mix thinking, this is it. But then tons of people actually told me to not fall into this gaslight and manipulation of Clara, and it got me rethinking my decisions, and immediately I stopped. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm gonna post again the day that brother-in-law divorces Clara. In the comments, Grey Fern says, "Nah, you're the asshole for posting something like that on IG. So immature. And why would you be excited about someone's divorce after a small issue like this? It just shows how petty you are." And OP replies, Sure. I already said that I am, in fact, petty. I admitted it. Also, I'm not excited. Brother-in-law is the one who told me, well, I'm updating you the day that I divorce her, since he's genuinely debating it, so you can say it on Reddit. I didn't tell him about the post, he found it himself. So that last line is pretty much just a joke between us that I know he's gonna see. You can stop crying now. Invisible Pancreas asks, how does asking for a discount for a wedding dress because the customer is getting married make a lick of sense? Oh, well, of course you can get a discount. It is so rare to have a bride-to-be in a shop like this. Most of my clientele get the dresses for filming period dramas or elaborate practical jokes. I loved the pettiness of having a couple propose using a cupcake as the ring and following it up with a text that said, at least these 2 are getting a wedding dessert from me. I love it when people get their just desserts. You're right, I don't care about you. At all. Why don't people just say that to pushy assholes? OP right there being petty crocker, and I love it. Satri Med says, it's a bit relieving to see an OP who has a smart head on their shoulders and does not need Reddit to tell them not to be a pushover, though I cannot wrap my head around people like the brother-in-law. He seems nice enough and apparently knows about the sister's behavior and still married her, only to consider divorce 1 day into marriage. Why did he marry her then? A lot of people fear confrontation. He probably felt more scared of going back on a wedding than he did going back on the marriage afterwards, because you need to confront a lot more people to cancel a wedding. For sure, and I bet the entire family would have descended on him and tried to bully him into going through with it, just like they tried to do with OP. I don't doubt that either. It really does seem like he had no other choice in this situation. I do wonder if a lot of these red flags started coming out towards the wedding date. Like there were things that he probably questioned along the way there but could dismiss, and as this particular drama ramped up, things started coming together, he started connecting the dots and was like, oh my god, this is such a bad idea, what do I do? I guess we can never fully understand the depths of that relationship and if this is just a one-time thing, but I think we can easily assume that things aren't all hunky-dory if he's considering divorce a day after the wedding. That's pretty bad. Anyway guys, I'd love to know what you think of this one down in the comments below. Our next post is by user SomeAccident1065, titled, Am I the asshole for having my son miss his graduating road trip to watch his sibling? My son has just graduated high school, and we were paying so he could go on a road trip with his friends. He was supposed to go on Wednesday. My wife's mother and father got into a car accident. They live in another state, so we had to drive about 4 hours. My wife was a wreck and wasn't in the position to drive since her dad was in critical condition. He pulled through, luckily. We have 2 other kids who are 11 and 7. We can't leave them at home alone, and we couldn't find a sitter to watch them on such short notice. We even tried our neighbors, but he couldn't do it. So that left our 18-year-old. He was pissed, to put it mildly, but he did it. I told him that we would make it up to him, and if he could ask his friends if we could move it back a week, but they couldn't, sadly. We were gone for 2 days. He pulled through. My wife stayed, and I headed back. I paid him for watching the kids, and went to talk to him about getting him on the trip. It was supposed to be 2 weeks, and they should just be a state over. He blows up about ruining his trip, and there is no point going, even though it should still be 12 days of the trip. He called me a jerk and locked himself in his room. I need another opinion since this was an emergency, and he doesn't seem to care that his grandparents almost passed. Honestly, I know a lot of people probably want to say you're the asshole for this one, but I'm gonna go with no assholes here in this situation. Simply put, this happened out of nowhere and it seemed as though fates collided. It does appear as though you did everything you could in your power to find a backup in order to look after the kids while you were away. I don't have kids, so I can't talk on it, but I don't know if this was a situation where those 2 young kids should have been exposed to something as traumatic as this. It probably was safer to keep them away and not damage them mentally to have to deal with such high energy and high stakes emotions over there. While on the flip side, I do understand exactly where your son is coming from. I'd be monumentally pissed off if this was taken from me. I don't think he's an asshole for doing exactly as you'd expect someone in his situation to do. So yeah, that's my judgment. In the comments, honestly, you're the asshole. I don't understand why you couldn't take your kids. It's their grandparents who were in a critical condition after all. And what would have happened if he already left? I agree. OP could have stayed at the in-laws' house with the kids, while his wife and mother-in-law were at the hospital with the father-in-law. So we're just disregarding the fact that OP's wife probably needed support and help from him as well? It literally says in the post that she was a wreck, which no one can blame her for because both her parents were in a car accident and were injured, even if it was just her dad who was in critical condition. I think being there for your spouse in an emergency situation like this trumps missing a couple days of a 2-week-long vacation, and OP did try to ensure his son still got his trip. Right? Only in alternate universes where 18-year-old spoiled kids once trump an entire family's emergencies needs. It's horrible. I can't imagine at 18 that I wouldn't have missed a trip to help my family out. And to be honest, I wouldn't have felt like going on a fun trip if my grandfather was possibly dying. There's something wrong with this kid. Like, I know parents shouldn't force their kids to care for the other kids, but sometimes kids can just be decent, helpful people in cases of emergency for those they love. He's 18 as well, legally an adult. By that age, you should feel some sense of responsibility towards people you care about, and, if you're a caring and decent person, be willing to make sacrifices for the people you love in dire emergencies. I cut my graduation trip to Europe short because my grandpa died and I wanted to support my mum. It never even crossed my mind to be upset about the trip. I can't believe the lack of empathy here. No assholes here. What a terrible situation for everyone involved. However, if he is rejecting any potential resolution to this, it's just because he's upset. I'm sure he cares that his grandparents are okay, but he cares more about the trip, which, given the circumstances, is somewhat understandable. You're the asshole. You knew he had a trip, and I see no reason from your story why you couldn't have brought the younger kids with you, aside from it being an emotionally charged situation and them being inconvenient. They are your responsibility ultimately, not his. What would you have done if he already left on this trip and it had happened? Would you have demanded he come back from his trip to watch your kids? It's also not your job to police how he feels about his grandparents. People are allowed to feel however they feel about people. Especially family that they don't get to choose. I was never particularly close with my mom's parents. We showed up together at all family events, but we never had a one-on-one relationship. Do I love them? Sure, but there's a distance between us that has never been bridged. They knew very little about me as a person. Cartographer Hot asks, was there a reason that you didn't take the younger kids with you? They're at ages where you don't have to keep an eye on them every single second. It shouldn't have been that much of a bother. OP replies, it would have been an awful opinion for everyone, especially since I was running around through most of it and wasn't in the room for a good bit. Mum was having breakdowns and was not even fit to look after herself, and Grandma and Grandpa were also bad. Grandpa was basically mangled. Maybe the middle child could have handled it, but definitely not our youngest. We didn't have that whole time, so basically 48 hours at a hospital. Update. Well, he called his mum. Let's say it didn't end well. He did say basically the same thing that he said to me. My wife had a breakdown on the phone with him. She sent him the injuries and pictures of Grandma and Grandpa. He finally came out of his room and told me he isn't going on the trip and the plane tickets aren't needed. I talked to my wife. I have never heard her that mad. Son confirmed what happened. He started yelling at her the moment the call started, and she lost her shit when he called her selfish. For some good news, Grandpa has some feeling back in his legs, which was a huge concern. For people saying we didn't have emergency plans, we do. First, my closest friend, vacation, main babysitter, not available, backup babysitter, not available, last resort grandparents, hospital. We tried to find someone else, and that's why we even asked our neighbor, which I have a good relationship with. This will be my last update. I had a conversation with my son about everything. Mum and him will have a conversation when she calms down. His friends are not a state over, they're about 2 down at this point, and are going to Mexico. They are probably going to get to the border tonight. They were supposed to be going to California. He had his passport and everything ready. This is an effing mess. I haven't informed my wife yet, and will wait until she is calmer. I'll leave off with, I hope none of you ever have to deal with a situation like this, and please remember that your parents are human. My girlfriend blames me for not stopping her going home with another guy. I want to break up. What do I do? So I, 22 male, and my girlfriend, 24 female of 4 years, and some friends went nightclubbing a couple of days ago. It wasn't a heavy night, but she did get quite drunk. About halfway through the night, she came up to me outside, after disappearing for a while, holding hands with an older man and stated that she was going to go to the toilet with him. They both came back about 5 minutes later, but she ignored all my attempts to get her to come with me. They both had their phones out like they were exchanging numbers, and she just completely refused to come home with me. When I finally got her attention, I told her to go away, and I went home alone. I checked her location when I got home and saw she was at someone else's house in a totally different part of town, nowhere that she or I know anyone. I found out the following day that it was the same guy's house, but she said she left immediately and that nothing happened between them, whilst also saying that she doesn't remember most of the night. She profusely apologized at first and was crying on the phone to me about the fact that she can't lose me, but we met for coffee the next day and she said that I should have forced her to come with me and that I'm to blame for compromising our relationship by letting it happen. I now feel like I've done wrong and I should have stopped her. Edit. She also threatened to hang herself. Is this something that I should tell her parents about, or is that not my place? In the comments, Raga Jaga says, the first sign to dump her ass was when she appeared holding some guy's hand after disappearing for a while and then effed off to the toilets with him alone. She cheated. God knows how many times in one night. If she's that upfront and cold about it, it's 10,000% not the first time either. If something isn't working, it won't work. It's actually not that tough to decide to break up with her. Dump her, block her, call her parents about the suicidal threat, and then don't look back. Block, ignore, move on. If you had forced her, there would be drama of a different kind that she would now be blaming you for. She is irresponsible, untrustworthy, and manipulative. Do you want to further enable these things by giving her another chance? Ah yes, the sweet song of a narcissist. Either way, it's your fault. If you would have stopped her, then she would have just said that you're abusive and controlling. So much so, she can't even just have friends and will F the guy out of spite. Ghost out as fast as you can while covering all your bases of not getting screwed over. Record any and all conversations with her after the fact. I've unfortunately had run-ins with these creatures. There is no salvaging this. Cut your losses and run before she really decides to F with you. Update. I went to speak to her yesterday. She has said that she is willing to change and get therapy and fight for our relationship. I said the line must be drawn somewhere and broke it off. I've spoken to her mum today and told her about the suicide threats she made, which she was horrified to hear. Both her and my girlfriend are adamant that she was not unfaithful to me, and part of me does believe that. However, I also never believed that she would come up to me holding another man's hand. Either way, it sounded like her and her mum blame me for breaking it off, but I felt like I had no other choice. I did not want to, but I felt like I had to for my own sake. There is the argument that no matter what, I should have stopped her from going home with that man, because who knows what could have happened. But I also know that I tried my best in the situation to get her to come home, and I was of the opinion that she had decided to cheat on me, and I wasn't going to stop that. I haven't always been the perfect boyfriend, and perhaps I haven't been there for her at times when she did need me, but I know I have never and would never do what she did. I think I need to give myself permission to say enough is enough. No matter how much you love someone, if it's sacrificing your own mental health as it has been for me recently, then it's time to call it a day. I feel heartbroken and have been filled with guilt and regret. I'll be okay, right? Yeah, I think you'll be okay, OP. You kind of just have to give these things time and weather the storm. It's best that you get away from them as soon as possible, and it's great that you cut ties. It's just sad and pathetic that they're both trying to gaslight you when she clearly cheated. It's so obvious. How are you going to convince me that you didn't? Anyway, everything will be okay, OP, and I hope you're okay from here on out. In the comments, Phantom User 666 says, "It's for the best. She definitely cheated. Take away what you can mentally and move on." Like, who even cares if she cheated? The way she handled the disagreement was enough for me. Yeah, the infidelity is just the icing on the cream pie, which she most certainly did. Yet somehow OP is to blame here, according to her and her flying monkey of a mother. Get the hell out of here with that noise. OP, you dodged a major bullet here. If you have to stop your partner from cheating on you, end the relationship then and there. 100%. A relationship does not involve the responsibility to stop your partner from being an asshole. The responsibility always lies with themselves. And now onto the final update. Kind of just rehashes the story, but rewrites it a little bit. Me and my girlfriend of 4 years and some friends went nightclubbing a couple of days ago. It wasn't a heavy night, but she did get quite drunk despite us just recently talking about her limits with alcohol. About halfway through the night, she came up to me outside, after disappearing off for a while, holding hands with an older man, and stated that she was going to the toilet with him, behind a building, not the actual toilet. They both came back about 5 minutes later, but she ignored all of my attempts to get her to come with me. They both had their phones out like they were exchanging numbers, and she just completely refused to come home with me. Rightly or wrongly, I wasn't going to physically remove her from the situation. I checked her location when I got home and saw that she was at someone else's house in a totally different part of town. I found out the following day that it was the same guy's house, but she said she left immediately and that nothing happened between them. She profusely apologized at first and was crying on the phone to me about the fact that she can't lose me, but we met for coffee the next day, and she said that I should have forced her to come with me, and that I'm to blame for compromising our relationship by letting it happen. A couple of days later, she turned up at my house, despite me telling her not to, telling me that she was going to hang herself and that she had taken a load of drugs. My friend overheard all of this and saw that she had driven off, having stated that she was on drugs. A wild goose chase ensued with us trying to get her to stop. Thankfully she did, and we took her home. I felt as if that episode completely took away from the hurt and pain that I felt from her going home with that man. I also feel I would never have forgiven myself if I hadn't tried to stop her committing, and I am angry at her for that, rightly or wrongly. She says that she didn't mean to drag my friends into the situation, but she genuinely felt suicidal in the moment. I do think she is genuinely remorseful, and she has since begun counseling, but ultimately the damage is done. I have since broken up with her, but she's refusing to let me find a replacement tenant for our flat that we only just began renting together. We're in the UK. What on earth am I supposed to do? Honestly, OP, if you can, just cut yourself off of that lease as fast as possible. There's obviously going to be some form of compensation needed for that, but the long-term damage to you financially and emotionally, potentially physically with this woman, is not worth saving some money. Cut ties and run far, far away as soon as you can, is my advice. In the comments, the 95th says, contact your agency or landlord. There is a nominal fee for changes to the tenancy agreement which can remove you as a tenant. Estate agents deal with this on a daily basis. It's easier for them to remove you as a tenant for a fee, often half a month's rent, than it is to deal with you just walking away and not paying. You guys are young. I recommend talking to her and telling her it's over and that you guys need to be adults about this and speak to the landlord. It's going to be tough, but she needs to learn her lesson about how she treats people that she supposedly loves. About the whole threatening suicide thing, it's only for attention. I have known quite a few people that have done it, and it's usually the ones that don't talk about it that do it. My one friend joked about it sometimes, but he never said, I'm just gonna do it. If she doesn't like the consequences of her actions, maybe she needs to stop doing those actions. Partying and getting wasted can diminish any reasoning or ability to make good choices. If you do love this girl though, give her the ultimatum of drinking or you. She cannot have both. Imagine your girlfriend comes up holding a man's hand and then goes into the bathroom with him before literally ditching you to go home with him and still thinking she did not cheat. Lamau? Right? That's some insane denial right there. Deniers be denying. My ex-wife got drunk one night while she had the kids, and my oldest called me panicking to tell me she was in the room with another man and wouldn't unlock the door. I was on speakerphone telling her to unlock the door for him, and she wouldn't. Obviously because the other man was in there. Most of my family chose to believe it didn't happen until eventually she confessed. We caught her red-handed, and they all chose denial to maintain the status quo. There is countless things I hate about cheaters, but their refusal to take accountability for their actions is probably on top of the list. Not only they make a conscious decision to cheat and hurt their partner and relationship, but they also have the audacity to turn around and act like poor victims who had no other choice but to go screw someone else. The audacity. I hope OP is able to sort his housing situation out as quickly as possible, because judging by her general behavior and the threat to harm herself, she sounds manipulative and could talk OP into taking her back. I hope not. Today I messed up by mixing up the dates my wife and I had tickets to Taylor Swift's Eras tour. This happened earlier tonight. Backstory. My wife loves Taylor Swift. We'd actually had one of our first dates at a Taylor Swift concert. She was so excited when the Eras tour was announced because she had missed Taylor's last tour and hadn't seen her perform live since 2015. We were fortunate enough to get into the verified fan pre-sale because I've purchased many of Taylor's albums on vinyl for my wife as gifts. As some of you may have heard, the pre-sale was a shit show and we did not successfully get tickets. Looking for more tonight. We again were fortunate to get a second chance at purchasing tickets due to TM trying to save face. This time around, Ticketmaster didn't allow you to choose specific tickets, just the price range that you were comfortable with, and they would choose the seats for you within a day or so. We successfully got tickets this time, and she was so pumped. We've been talking about it for weeks. She spent the previous day getting her outfit decided. We got a babysitter, my brother, I got someone to cover me at work. We drove an hour, got there an hour early, paid $60 for parking, walked 3/4 miles to get to the stadium, waited in lines, got through security, get the tickets out. They don't scan. We try to sort out why, and discover therefore yesterday. We tried talking to several staff about our predicament, my F-up, to no avail. Of course, they're completely sold out. Only option would have been to buy $1,000 per piece tickets off the secondary market. Message Ticketmaster, sorry, you're F-up. So now she won't talk to me, understandably. I'm in the doghouse. No idea how I'm ever getting out. Pray for me. In the comments, Darby Nerd says, I would love to have your level of confidence to just assume a concert date and not anxiety check the tickets 500 times before the night of the show. I was flying out to Cancun last Sunday. Saturday, I checked my passport, as I did when I booked my trip. It said it expired in 2019. Cue massive panic attack. I'm effed. It's Saturday, there is nothing I can do. I'm just going to assume my wife will go without me. Pull my wife's passport, hers expired in 2014. Then I realized I was looking at the issue date, which has the word expires right below it. I collect myself, but I can relate to the massive panic that OP must have felt when he realized his screw-up. How the hell do you spend several hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on tickets, and you can't even get the date correct? Ticketmaster also emails you many times leading up to the concert, prepare for your upcoming concert on X date, or things to know for your upcoming concert. This part puzzles me. I went to a concert 2 weeks ago and got 2 or maybe 3 emails reminding me to add my tickets to the wallet and the things to know email. Did OP get none of them? Ignore or delete them? This reminds me of a friend of mine. Every year he goes to Wacken, metal festival in Germany. One day we were in the queue and all tickets were blue. His was green. He didn't care, he just thought that it was a different ticket or so. When he tried to get in, he hears, "This is from last year. Do you have from this year?" He sits and starts sobbing, as his actual ticket is around 1,000 kilometers from there. Luckily, he manages to talk with a box office manager that found his payment ticket. Luckily, wasn't a resale ticket, and he manages to get in. Update. After a long, quiet car ride home and a long night on the couch, I took the time to read everyone's comments and reflect on my massive mistake. The upset was palpable, and I knew there was very little that I'd be able to do to make things right. Flowers? Not even close. A bracelet? She would never want to wear it for risk of being reminded of this horrible night. A lot of you suggested buying tickets to a future concert. Only thing is the last US show is this weekend in LA, and they're super effing expensive. After that, Taylor is heading international for the next year. Thanks for coming down under, Taylor Swift. See you in February. This did, however, make me realize that whatever the cost, I should consider it. Having to live with this for however long she'd decide to keep me around felt like a certain hell. So I started doing the math. Would it make sense to plan a trip to Paris next year and see her perform there? How about a quicker trip to Mexico City? After analysis, most of her tickets were coming out to about the same on the secondary market, $1,000 per. This sort of narrowed it down. I should just buy tickets for this weekend in LA. I'd rather have her experience the show earlier than later, and leaves less room for other mistakes and interruptions anyways. I called her best friend that lives in LA and let her in on my mistake. She audibly gasped, asked her if she was free this weekend, and would want to escort my wife to the show. She said she'd love to. In exchange, she'd handle all the heavy lifting in LA, picking the wife up from the airport, driving to the show, bed for the night at her place, etc. She rightly suggested that I should run it by the wife before just going forward with it. I broached the subject and broke our silence with, "So, have you considered divorce yet?" This got a laugh and a reply of, "Not seriously." I told her the plan and she was ecstatic. However, she was concerned about the expense. I did my best to assuage her concerns and eventually she acquiesced. I headed over to Southwest and StubHub, triple-checked the dates, purchased concert tickets for Saturday, and plane flights from San Fran to LA. So that's the plan. My mum is babysitting on Saturday, the wife flies down on Saturday morning, friends pick her up, they see the best show of their lives, and she flies back on Sunday. What started as just a horrible, horrible experience can hopefully turn into a funny story and a once-in-a-lifetime adventure for her and her friend. The mood in the house changed instantly. She already let me off the hook for the attempt alone. We love each other very much, and this wouldn't have affected us in the long run, but I certainly did not want this held over my head by her or family members. I wanted to make it right, even if it started stinging the pocketbook. Thank you all for the comments and advice. It actually did help a lot. I needed some laughs and encouragement. We'll see how this weekend goes. I may have another update for you on Monday. Q&A from previous post. How come you didn't check the dates on the tickets like 500 times? OP says, I think I have a theory for what happened here. When the presale originally happened through Ticketmaster, we were unable to successfully get tickets, and I was looking for Saturday the 29th. But when Ticketmaster gave us second chance at tickets, they didn't let you select the seats, and I guess the date. They just issued tickets for you in your approved price range. Obviously now, they issued them for Friday, and I just always assumed it was Saturday, as that was the date that I was attempting to buy them for. I immediately put the show in our shared calendar, and never thought about it otherwise. Didn't you get the reminder emails? They send loads. OP replies, they did, and I've since gone back and reread them all. I guess the issue is that I received so many emails from them that I didn't read any of them closely. About a month prior to the show, I added the tickets to my Google Wallet, but the day of the week was nebulous to me at that point, and I was just trusting what was already in my calendar. Isn't your wife just as responsible? No, not really. I handle most all of the planning in our household. I've handled weeks-long, months-long, local and international trips with dozens of hotels, train tickets, restaurant reservations, etc., and never had a serious problem. Logistics is what I do for a living as well, so she trusted me as she always had. The only responsibility she has in it is loving and trusting me. I can't believe she's not talking to you for just a concert. She wasn't really not talking to me, but she was understandably upset. It was a lot to process, months of build-up, the excitement all week, all the media and posts about how much everyone is loving the show, thinking you're going to have an awesome night, and a rare date night, and then boom, gone. I get it, completely. She needs some space and to come to terms with a loss. Can you try to message Taylor Swift for help? Yeah, would love a little help here. Anyone got to connect? In the comments, Trivoliver says, glad you're able to fix your mistake and what a wonderful way to do so. Good job. OP replies, thank you. Glad that the ordeal is over. I'll be even more relieved when this weekend goes off without a hitch. Ambitious Rub says, my brother-in-law planned a proposal trip for my sister years ago, had the hotel prepare a proposal space, chocolates and roses petals in the room, and he effed up the flight time and got to the airport an hour late. My worst nightmare of flight time was back in 2021. Went to visit friends and found family down in Austin. My mum called me the night before my flight, and I found out my flight was at 6 p.m., not 6 a.m., like I thought I scheduled it for. Only bad thing was I had to pay $5 extra to the parking lot for the extra 12 hours. That's why 24-hour reigns supremacy. 6 o'clock and 18 o'clock are two completely different times, and so are midnight and 12 o'clock. I have a few flight time troubles, but mistaking AM and PM was never one. Wandering Light says, and now T Swift just recently announced that she was adding more dates, so poor OP could have probably gotten cheaper tickets to a different show. Too late. You had to be registered by Saturday to even be eligible, and I didn't see it until yesterday. As my mum would say, day late and $1 short. If OP put the tickets on his Google Wallet in advance, wouldn't his phone have been blowing him up all day with reminders? My phone reminds me around an hour before every event at a minimum, sometimes more than 12 hours in advance. Example, flights when I put them in my phone wallet. He may just be one of those people who have so many apps and get so bombarded with notifications that they stop paying attention to them. Or he may have seen the notification and just dismissed it without reading it thoroughly, thinking it was notifying him of the concert coming up tomorrow when it was really today.